Chapter 1301, The Secret Was Leaked too. Okay, walk a bit slower. Second elder still needs a cup of tea's time before he'll return. Nangong Luyan dilly-dallied, rubbing Su Luo's soft and silky little hand as he walked. How do you know second elder still needs a cup of tea's time before he returns? Su Luo was immediately puzzled. Did this person have the ability to divine the future? Want to know? On the roof, Nangong Luyan stuck up his legs like a self-centered show-off. Su Luo was about to put a hand to her forehead speechlessly. Evildoer, this was the Northern Mo Imperial Palace, okay? He was still seriously injured, okay, yet he was still this leisurely. Who lent him the courage? Nangong Luyan, sitting on the roof of People's Palace in broad daylight. You're not afraid of getting chased and killed? Su Luo glared at him helplessly. Just now, he had framed their little princess and teased the commander-ranked second elder. Now he was still this calm and unperturbed. Su Luo was truly defeated by him. Nangong Luyan was playing with Su Luo, and saw he had teased her long enough. It was only then that he pulled Su Luo up, and the two people stood up together. With a swoosh sound, they disappeared in place. Originally, Guard A's hearing was the best. However, after having his hearing being called into question, time and time again he simply pretended to be deaf, treating everything he heard as hallucinations. As a result, no one had discovered the peculiarity on top of the palace. In broad daylight, Nangong Luyan led Su Luo along to leap on roofs and vault over walls in the Northern Mo Imperial Palace. So skillful that it seemed as if they were strolling in their own backyard. There were no situations along the way. At this time, Second Elder already knew that Third Princess had run away. Without saying a word more, he hurriedly commanded everyone to capture the Third Princess. The entire palace was in an uproar because of this. One after another, black figures skittered across the courtyard. However, Nangong Luyan just so happened to have the ability to bring Su Luo leisurely and contentedly, amidst these many pursuing figures, to a secret base. This place is? Su Luo blinked suspiciously. Our temporary safe shelter. Do you like it? If you don't like it, we'll change to another place. For the Prince of Eastern Ling, who was the archenemy of Northern Mo's emperor, to step into the Northern Mo Imperial Palace like he was stepping into his own territory, and still very thoughtfully ask Su Luo if she liked it or not. If she didn't like it, they could change to another place. Su Luo suddenly felt speechless. It's just a temporary place for us to rest. Decent enough is fine. In fact, this was Su Luo being pretentious. This was a splendid and magnificent palace. The arrangement all around had a subdued yet lavish beauty. Only because people hadn't lived here for a long time, so it seemed somewhat cold and cheerless. Su Luo examined the surrounding environment and nodded with satisfaction. Originally, I thought you'd bring me to go stay in a basement, storehouse, or icehouse type of place. This place is already beyond my expectations. Basement? Storehouse? Icehouse? Nangong Luyan seemed to find it somewhat hard to imagine. How could this King's Luo girl possibly stay in such wretched places? As for this palace, since it's just for a few days, let's just make do and stay here. This splendid and magnificent palace. Look at the way His Highness Prince Jean said it, as if he was being wronged, having gotten away with a small advantage, and he was still trying to sell an obedient expression. If Nangong Luyan regarded himself as number 2, who would dare to be number 1? As they talked, the sky gradually darkened. Su Luo felt somewhat hungry. When she turned around and saw Nangong Luyan sitting in meditative position to cultivate, she decided to forage for food on her own rather than disturb his quiet cultivation. Su Luo's space was really huge. Back then, she had indeed stored a lot of food inside, but after going through the 9 different palace halls, these food were almost completely consumed. So currently, aside from a sack of rice, there was no other cooked food left in Su Luo's space. In the Northern Mo Imperial Palace, there must be an imperial kitchen, right? Thinking of culinary delicacies, Su Luo's mood immediately became good, and she flew unrelentingly towards the direction of the imperial kitchen. Chapter 1302, The Secret Was Leaked 3. Ever since entering the 8th rank, Su Luo felt that her entire person wasn't quite the same as before. Her eyes were brighter, she could hear much farther, and even her mind was a lot clearer. After learning how to teleport, her speed soared even more. So even though she knew the second elder was chasing that pitiful third princess, Su Luo still didn't hesitate to take a risk out of desperation, because of her stomach which was so hungry that it made rumbling sounds. However, it was also strange that along the entire route, Su Luo already couldn't see the figures of those people in pursuit. It might be assumed that the unlucky third princess either escaped out of the palace, or she had already gotten captured and was brought back. Su Luo extended her heartfelt sympathy for that third princess. Apart from this, she couldn't do much more. If they were fated to meet again, then she might give the third princess some good stuff. Su Luo had in her hands Nangong Liuyun's hand-drawn map of Northern Mo Imperial Palace. However, while holding the map, she traveled around once and still couldn't find the place. In the end, Su Luo put away the map and used a ruthless strategy. What ruthless strategy? In actuality, it was very simple. Su Luo simply let the little divine dragon come out. The little divine dragon's sense of smell was usually the sharpest. So when this little guy was let out, without demur he ran towards the east. Very good. Su Luo happily followed this glutton, the little divine dragon, as he made a beeline straight for the imperial kitchen. There was still a distance of 500 meters from the imperial kitchen. Su Luo knew that this time, the little dragon guiding her hadn't gone the wrong way. The air carried a rich, sweet fragrance, enticing one's saliva to flow out, especially when one's stomach was so hungry that it called out with rumbling sounds. Su Luo and the little divine dragon exerted all their strength to float into the fragrance-filled imperial kitchen like light smoke. At this time, it just so happened to be the dinner rush hour. It was bustling inside the imperial kitchen. Su Luo carried the little divine dragon, and just traveled back and forth like this inside the spacious imperial kitchen. Because her speed was as fast as a passing gust of wind, so other people actually didn't see her. Because the dishes hadn't come out of the pot yet, so Su Luo just carried the little divine dragon, whirled her body, and flew up to the roof to wait. Looking down from her line of sight, she had a panoramic view of the scene in the entire imperial kitchen. Those who were cutting and washing were cutting and washing. Those who were stir-frying were stir-frying. It was neat and tidy. Everything was clear and in good order. Su Luo had picked a good spot. It was right above a whole row of stoves. There was a stew pot, earthenware pot, frying pan, all sorts of delicacies. The only ones that couldn't be seen were ones that couldn't be imagined. How fragrant! Su Luo took a deep breath and gave a huge praise. Truly speaking, ever since she was seriously injured by Yan Xia, that old witch, Su Luo hadn't managed to properly enjoy a meal with such delicacies. If Su Luo didn't get to eat, then the little dragon naturally would be the same. At this time, the little divine dragon fidgeted restlessly in Su Luo's arms. If it wasn't for Su Luo hugging him, he would have long since flown down and shoved all the delicacies into his mouth. Su Luo patiently placated him and coaxed. Don't be anxious. Can't you see that the dishes haven't come out of the pot yet? If you eat undercooked food, you'll get diarrhea. Su Luo didn't know if the dragon race would get diarrhea from eating undercooked food. Anyhow, in her eyes, the little divine dragon was just naturally a foolish little brat. Awoo, awoo. The transparent saliva from the little divine dragon's mouth dripped straight down. Okay. I'll go get you something to eat right now. Don't be anxious. Su Luo stroked the little divine dragon's head. These days really made her too starved. Before Su Luo finished appeasing the little divine dragon, the little fox inside her space saw this and immediately cried and yelled out while rolling about on the floor, complaining that Su Luo was being partial. These little brats, hey, none of them were truly easy to serve. Su Luo gave the nine-tailed little fox some sincere warning, before letting it out. Chapter 1303, Girl Genius, 1. After letting out these two little spirit pets, the consequences were too horrible to contemplate. These two little things were complete gluttons. Moreover, they were the kind that specialized in picking out only the good things to eat. After Su Luo let them out, the two little spirit pets behaved as if they'd been let out of a cage. Exceedingly cheerful and light-hearted, a flash of their bodies and traces of them disappeared. When Su Luo's gaze settled on everything again, These two little things had already split off, charging towards delicacies they had set their eyes on. That speed was like an artillery shell, extremely fast. In the imperial kitchen, there was no one guarding before those stew pots and earthenware pots, so they became their first choice. The little dragon's two little claws clasped a pot of colorful and lustrous, delicious sharkfin chicken stew, tilted his head up, and with gulping sounds, poured it into his mouth. Upon seeing this, the little fox didn't want to be outdone and followed him, lifting a pot of lion's mane mushroom balls. Her tongue moved round, even cleaning out the bottom of the pot. Then this girl even demonstrated her innate ability, turning the pot upside down to show the little divine dragon that she had eaten until there was not even a drop left. Upon seeing this, the little divine dragon scoffed inwardly. He could lose at anything else but this. The little divine dragon's two claws each grabbed a ginseng root and swallowed it one by one. When the little fox saw this, she proudly humped twice and even used her leg claw to kick up 4 chrysanthemum Buddha hand pastries. As they were falling down, she opened her mouth wide and caught each of the 4 chrysanthemum Buddha hand pastries separately. Seeing this, Su Luo could not help but facepalm inwardly. She had known early on that with these two scourges around, the imperial kitchen could forget about having any good food left over. Seeing these two little things snatch things up happily, Su Luo also began to make her move. At this moment, Su Luo leisurely and contentedly lay down on the roof, and then let out a slender and almost invisible vine leaf from her sleeve. This vine leaf was amazing. It was that same one which, at that time, had switched out the purple-colored crystal stones from right before Ancestor Mo, causing the old man to have recoil of madness. Ever since stealing the purple-colored crystal stones, this golden vine could be considered as having experienced the huge gales and billows. It completely didn't even place these little streams into its sights. At this time, its golden vine shrank until it was more slender than a sewing needle, noiselessly moving towards the target below. After wrapping around a pot with overflowing fragrance, it then returned quickly in a flash, handing the pot over to Su Luo. This was a serving of colorful, lustrous, golden yellow, oily, juicy, and shiny kung pao hair, definitely deserving of being a product from the imperial palace. With a rich aroma, gluttonous people's forefingers would move greatly, and their saliva would flow down. Su Luo also wasn't polite and ate it up with gusto. By the time Su Luo finished eating this pot, she bowed her head to look, and found that the lovely little golden vine had practically moved more than half the imperial kitchen before her. Su Luo happily smiled and was also not polite and flipped her sleeve. Su Luo swept all these pots, pans and plates of delicacies into her space, leaving the food to be properly enjoyed later after returning. After all, the cooking skills of those in the imperial kitchen were much better than her own. Once she finished cleaning up, and after eating her fill and drinking excessively, Su Luo waved her hands. Then, bringing the two little spirit pets with bulging and round bellies, she flew out from the window. Talking about it seems like it took a really long time, but in actuality, from when Su Luo stepped into the imperial kitchen until she finished eating her fill and drinking excessively then left, this merely took a cup of tea's worth of time. So the cooks in the imperial kitchen, who were still toiling away, working hard to cook the dishes, completely didn't know that most of the evening meal that they'd finished cooking had already been stolen. Soon after Su Luo and them had left, these cooks in the imperial kitchen finished cooking the final few dishes. Then, when they prepared to serve them to all the nobles in the palace, they saw a mess all over the floor. Bone fragments, fish bones, fruit peel, fruit cores. These rubbish were thrown messily onto the floor. Oh heavens! Just what exactly happened here? Oh hell! Where is the kung pao hair that the Empress Dowager likes? And the fragrant pan-fried perch that His Majesty clearly said he wants to eat? And the lion's mane mushroom balls that the Queen Empress specially ordered? Chapter 1304, Girl Genius 2. How is it that everything has disappeared? Where did it all go? Quickly search, quickly search. Seeing that all kinds of delicacies had disappeared without a trace, everyone was stupefied. Just now they were in the imperial kitchen, just stir-frying the last dish. However, the pot at his right hand disappeared and he actually didn't know. This couldn't be seeing a ghost, right? Everyone looked at each other in dismay, The more they thought, the more scared they became. The cold snorts dropped like a dense cloud. Could it be there really are ghosts in this world? What nonsense! Then you say, how did those dishes disappear? We were all right here. Everyone was unable to understand what happened in the end. Thus, the riddle of the stolen property from the imperial kitchen became one of the unsolved mysteries in the historical records of the Northern Mo Empire, passed down from generation to generation. Su Luo didn't know that her moment of gluttony actually turned into a mystery recorded in history. At this moment, she was picking her teeth, unhurriedly walking towards her and Nangong Liuyun's residence. She had eaten and drank her fill, but Nangong Liuyun still hadn't. Therefore Su Luo was returning to bring him a meal. However, this meal, Nangong Liuyun was fated not to have a way to eat it, because while Su Luo was walking unexpectedly, she encountered a matter. Seeing a group of black figures come over, Su Luo's figure, quick as lightning, directly crouched down, hiding in a cluster of flowers. At this moment, it was nighttime. No one would expect someone to hide under the flower trees. Therefore, that party of people quickly left, without finding any trace of Su Luo. Seeing this group of people go to the main hall in a hurried manner, Su Luo's eyes flashed slightly. If she didn't guess wrong, just now, that unconscious person being carried on the guard's shoulder should be the third princess that ran away before. Su Luo half narrowed her eyes, and half muttered to herself. Before, in the clear spirit pool, third princess should have been suspicious. If she was afraid and her suspicions were to be shaken out, then this would be a little troublesome. Su Luo thought a bit and decided to follow and play it by ear. Those guard strengths were about at the 4th rank. For Su Luo, their fastest speed was nothing to her. So she very effortlessly followed behind them. They walked past palace after palace, finally stopping at the main palace hall. Main palace hall? A light flashed in Su Luo's eyes. If she didn't remember wrongly, this main palace hall was where the emperor discussed official business. It seemed that this matter had disturbed the old emperor, thus, it was highly probable that the third princess would say the truth from the interrogation. Just at this moment, a voice came from Su Luo's mind. That girl actually has an intelligent root. The little stone said with interest and stroked his chin. Intelligent root? Not true, right? That third princess doesn't even have the most common spirit aura. She still has intelligent root? Su Luo said in annoyance. That's because they have eyes but failed to recognize empty Tai, mistaking jadeite for a rock. The small stone coldly smiled. Do you still remember why the U originally was considered a waste? This matter, Su Luo naturally remembered very clearly. She couldn't forget even if she wanted to. The space element suppressed the two elements of wood and fire, thus. The small stone laughed mischievously. Since your elements could be suppressed, then other people's elements can't be suppressed? You're saying, this third princess is actually a genius, but for so many years like this, the elements were suppressed, so? Su Luo opened her eyes wide with wonder. If it was like this, then it really was very interesting. Just at this moment, second elder walked out from a small alley with large strides. When he passed by third princess's side, his complexion turned hazy. Chapter 1305, Girl Genius 3, he extended his hand to place it on third princess's wrist. In just a split second, he withdrew his hand again and snarled. You this waste don't even have the slightest bit of elemental spirit power. The third princess was like a startled small deer. She shrank and trembled. The rims of her eyes turned red, looking extremely pitiful. But second elder had no intention of letting her go. He ruthlessly slapped her and directly sent third princess flying. Although this third princess was not an elemental mage, but she was an outstanding beauty, dainty and flowery. Being treated like this, it really was a pity. Second elder was extremely angry, and didn't control his strength. His ferociously slap immediately made her pass out. Su Luo was hiding in the flower plants, and the place this third princess landed was very close to Su Luo, within reach. Seeing the red and swollen 5 fingerprints on third princess's delicate cheek, the anger and guilt in Su Luo's heart gradually spread out. If not for her and Nangong Liuyun, this third princess also wouldn't suffer this kind of senseless disaster. In the end, it was Su Luo and Nangong Liuyun that implicated her. Want to save her or not? The little stone's voice sounded in Su Luo's mind. How do I save her? Su Luo stared at the passed-out motionless third princess, her eyes half-narrowed. First option, kill her and everything would be solved. To prevent her from being a shadow on your heart, when you next advance ranks. The little stone suggested with an unconstrained style. That won't do. Su Luo directly vetoed this suggestion. She was not a homicidal maniac demon. This third princess had already suffered being implicated by her, being beaten by second elder to this state. How could she still kill her? Although her natural disposition was cold, indifferent and selfish, however, if a person didn't offend her, she also wouldn't offend that person. Then just accept her and use her for yourself. The little stone very kindly pointed out to Su Luo. This little princess, apart from having ice element system, she still has the rare light element. Oh. In this world, apart from her, it certainly will be difficult to find another light element mage. Ice element and light element? Su Luo cried out in surprise. This world actually has the light element? How is it that I haven't heard of it? The light element is like your space element. It has practically disappeared in the whole world, therefore, a lot of people haven't heard of it. The little stone's appearance was disappointed and frustrated. Recalling the past as he gazed at the distant sky, he faintly sighed. Then it seems I have to save her. Su Luo made up her mind. In fact, ever since the little stone spoke of this third princess's bitter experience, Su Luo had made up her mind to save her, because she recalled her own life experience. Back in those days, wasn't Su Luo also considered a waste and suffered all kinds of bullying because her element was suppressed? Speaking of which, this third princess's bitter experience and her own were very similar, if not for anything else. Just for this point, Su Luo would also move to save her. The little stone suddenly laughed. In fact, you saving her is making a huge profit. Here, take this and feed it for her to eat. What is this? An entirely pitch-black pill appeared in the center of Su Luo's palm. A medicinal pill that gave off a bitter almond smell. This blackish medicinal pill, she seemed to have no impression of it. The little stone cast a glance at Su Luo as if looking at an idiot, and he unhurriedly said, "This is a mind pill. Now you know what it means?" Mind pill. Su Luo's eyes shone in a flash. At that time, when that cheap master of hers had examined her to accept as a disciple, she had memorized an entire stack of books as tall as a person by heart. Afterwards, she also studied on Cloud Mist Peak for 2 years. How could she not have heard of the name Mind Pill? But she had also only heard of it and hadn't ever seen it. Chapter 1306, Girl Genius 4. Because only a Grandmaster-ranked apothecary could refine the Mind Pill. Moreover, the drug ingredients were precious and the success rate was also fairly low. The so-called Mind Pill, as the name implied, was precisely used to control a person's mind. This kind of control was not the simple kind of control like a puppet technique. Rather, it let the one that ate it produce a favorable impression for the one that gave the medicine from the bottom of their hearts. For the rest of their life, they will view this person as their master and will single-mindedly and wholeheartedly be loyal. They would absolutely not betray. The sole consequence of betrayal was death. The Mind Pill, who wouldn't want it? Who wouldn't want a loyal and devoted subordinate that would absolutely not betray them? But the problem was that the Mind Pill was difficult to find. This Mind Pill, where did it come from? Su Luo slapped her head in puzzlement. How was it that she completely had no impression? Central Palace, Treasure Storage Pavilion. The little stone spoke 5 keywords. Pft. Actually was stolen from Central Palace's Treasure Storage Pavilion. I was saying, how was it I had no impression? At that time, it was too urgent. All the medicinal pills were swept into space. Up until now, I still haven't had the time to tidy up the pills. Didn't expect there was still such a good pill among them. The corner of Su Luo's mouth curved up happily. This time, the profits were huge. Forget the ice element. This light element mage was one that one could only come across such things serendipitously. Don't be happy too early. I looked at all those pills. The most useful one is just this one. The little stone couldn't help but pour cold water on Su Luo. To have this one pill is already enough. Su Luo originally had only wanted to save this third princess once, and then let her live or perish on her own. Because she was too lazy to pay attention to the lives of others. Because this third princess, after all, was Northern Mo's people. Northern Mo and Eastern Ling had been enemies for generations. How could she bring Northern Mo's princess with her as she traveled everywhere? But now, Su Luo already viewed this third princess as her own people. Naturally, she wouldn't let her suffer people's bullying again. Su Luo thought for a while, then put away the pill. If she hadn't guessed wrongly, this third princess would still be picked up to return to meet the emperor. If she prematurely exposed her potential, although she could slap second elder's face, but if Su Luo wanted to take away this third princess, then it would be difficult. Sure enough, Su Luo didn't guess wrongly. After that second elder gave vent to his anger, he very fiercely commanded, "Go pick up that girl. She wants to die? It won't be that easy." The two imperial bodyguards hurriedly came over, lifted up the unconscious third princess and silently entered, taking her inside the palace hall. Now Su Luo already regarded this third princess as her own people, so without another word, she jumped up onto the roof of the palace, light as a feather. Her figure pressed tightly to the ceramic tiles of the roof. She stealthily lifted up a roof tile, and raised her eyes to look inside. The third princess was carried in and laid on the floor, still unconscious. The person wearing a bright yellow dragon robe sat on the first seat at the east end of the head seat. At a glance, you could tell this was Northern Mo's emperor. One could see he had a neat square face. Because of having a high status for many years, he had a powerful dignity that didn't come from anger. However, facing that old man with a white beard on the head seat, his manner was deferential and humble. On the head seat, this old man with eyebrows, beard and all were white as a crane. An elderly man with a childish face. He was about 70 years old, with eyes bright like a snow sword and a slightly puckered up aquiline nose. He was gazing at second elder on the side with displeasure. Second elder, at this moment, restrained his anger, narrating what happened today in the Clear Spirit Pond. Eldest, this afternoon in the Clear Spirit Pond, Xianyuan Rong, this loathsome girl, really absorbed 3 whole snow spirit crystal stones. This matter, I saw with my own eyes. It is absolutely not false. Second elder only lacked pointing to the sky and making a vow. But just now, I checked once through. Rong girl's body is still the same as before, simply doesn't have a trace of spirit aura. Chapter 1307, Girl Genius 5. This matter made second elder angry to the point that it was unbearable. At that time, he was still extremely excited and wanted to accept Rong girl as his treasured disciple, and even feared she would be snatched away by other people. Now recalling this, such a waste, who would want to accept her? Even if he was paid, he would not want her, okay? The first elder's snow-white brows slightly wrinkled, stroking his clean beard that was bright as snow. This matter does seem odd. How could it not be odd? It's simply like seeing a ghost. Second elder said, panting with rage. At that time in the Clear Spirit Pond, was there anyone else? First elder deserved to be called first elder. He hit the mark with his comment, sharply pointing straight to the core. However, second elder immediately refuted it. How is that possible? Elder brother. It's not like you don't know. The key to Clear Spirit Pond is personally safeguarded by you. Without that key, who could enter the door to Clear Spirit Pond? Fearing first elder still wouldn't believe him, second elder still very stupidly acted on his own initiative to add half a sentence. At that time, I even checked, there simply was no other people. First elder became increasingly confused. He muttered half to himself. Could it be that something strange with Rong girl's body? Impossible. This girl is just a waste without the slightest bit of spirit aura. Second elder coldly snorted with disdain. A trace of suspicion flashed in first elder's eyes. He slowly walked down the stone steps, unhurriedly strolling to third princess's side. Like a noble senior descending, he squatted down and personally examined third princess's pulse. Only after checking for a long time did he get up. Elder brother, what I said wasn't wrong, right? This girl is simply just a waste without a bit of usefulness. The emperor wearing the bright yellow dragon robe sat motionlessly on the red sandalwood chair. At this moment, he unhurriedly inserted a word. Second uncle. Wrong girl is not necessarily useless. Second elder swept an annoyed glance at Emperor Ming and coldly scoffed. This waste should have been thrown out to feed the magical beasts at birth. Raising her is just wasting foodstuff and air in vain. Emperor Ming's deep gaze returned from the body of third princess who remained unconscious. He smiled shallowly and said to second elder. Second uncle. Don't get angry, waste has the use of waste. Before, Emoer mentioned to let her get married. Now it's proven she's truly a waste. Surely she can be perfectly happy to go now. A waste? How could she go assassinate Eastern Ling's emperor? Second elder sneered a few times. On top of the roof, the corner of Su Luo's mouth slowly hooked up into a sneer. The plan Northern Mo calculated was very good. To actually let the currently completely lacking in spirit power third princess to go assassinate Emperor Jing. Thinking of that muddled emperor that continuously prevented her and Nangong Luyin from being together, Su Luo secretly snorted in her heart. Only this emperor of Northern Mo was also a muddled egg, simply no different from Su Zian. His daughter wasn't a waste, rather she was an exceptional, startling, amazing genius of a little young lady. Su Luo secretly sneered in her heart. Wait until she helps this princess recovers her element. At that time, she'll make these people that look down on her to all open their eyes wide to see clearly. When that moment comes, their faces will certainly be very ugly. Inside the hall, Emperor Ming and Second Elder launched into a discussion on how to destroy Eastern Ling Empire. One only saw Emperor Ming laugh with a ha-ha. Second uncle, just because Rome Girl's body doesn't have spirit power, Eastern Ling's emperor won't be guarded against her. This will make it even easier for her to make her move. Saying it like this makes a bit of sense. Second Elder's anger dissipated slightly little by little. But if this girl makes a fuss of not wanting to go even alive or dead, then at that time, don't blame me for being impolite. Although this Second Elder's strength had cultivated to the commander rank, but his mind was really too narrow. Moreover, regarding the younger generation with no spirit power, that gaze of his was simply not looking at the other side as a person. Chapter 1308, Girl Genius 6. Second uncle, be at ease. At that time, this girl will naturally obediently agree to get on the marriage sedan. A profoundly mysterious sneer flashed through Emperor Ming's eyes. Father Emperor. Third princess, don't know when she woke up, but she had heard everything Emperor Ming and Second Elder said. At this moment, her beautiful eyes were filled with clear tears, with teardrops falling down, drop by drop. Emperor Ming saw third princess had woken up, and a trace of difference appeared in his heart, but his face still turned hazy. He heavily snorted, "Shut up. Father Emperor, you will really send daughter over to marry that old emperor?" Third princess stood up, tottering, and closely questioned, sounding heartbroken and deeply hurt. Emperor Ming, with a brush of his sleeves, he coldly scoffed. The family has provided for you with good food and good drinks for so many years. Now is the time for you to contribute to the family. Since you have no spirit power, then use your body to contribute a bit to Northern Mo's territorial expansion. No, my father emperor should not be like this. You're not my father emperor. I won't go. Third princess only felt anger rush up, her chi and blood surging. If not for this anger, she would have already collapsed long ago. Second Elder looked at third princess with a sneer. You go because you must go, you don't go, you still must go. This matter is beyond your control. Even if I go, I won't assassinate the Emperor of Eastern Ling. Third princess tightly clenched her fists. She was so angry that she was shaking from head to foot. If she had the strength, she would certainly risk her life to fight with these repulsive people. No, in fact, we don't need you to personally assassinate him. Second Elder seemed to feel provoking the third princess to anger worked off his anger, so he told her the complete truth. At that time, the inscription master will draw a matrix on your body. As long as he sleeps with you, then the Emperor of Eastern Ling will be poisoned because of it. Ha ha ha. You guys are simply shameless. Third princess's complexion was ashen, her whole body trembling because of anger. First Elder, you wield the power in the imperial family. To force a weak woman like this, don't tell me you really won't feel ashamed? First Elder swept an amiable-looking glance at Third Princess. In a serene and peaceful tone, he said, "Able to sacrifice yourself for Northern Mo's imperial family is your honor, child. Honor your younger sister, ah." Even Su Luo on the roof couldn't help but want to curse. This nest of Northern Mo imperial family were all shameless to no avail, ah. Simply even more shameless than Su Zian at that time. After all, Su Zian used her. He still knew the things he did were shameless, but this First Elder actually said sacrificing oneself was still a honor, still a privilege. This was simply saying that there wasn't the most shameless, only even more shameless. At this moment, Su Luo extended her most heartfelt sympathy to that pitiful third princess. Born in such a family, this princess's past life reincarnation wasn't cast off into a good birth, ah. Third princess's gaze gradually became cold and detached. With a gaze filled with wisps of blood, she retreated step by step. Eastern Ling has the legendary His Highness Prince Jean. How would you possibly absorb the earth of Eastern Ling? You guys will regret it. You guys will surely regret it. Afterwards, she turned around and ran with large strides to leave. Let her go. First Elder waved his sleeve and stopped Second Elder from chasing after her. There are people to follow her, she cannot escape. At this moment, Second Elder's brows were tightly pursed. What that loathsome girl said isn't wrong. Elder brother, we can forget about experts sent by Eastern Ling, but that Highness Prince Jean, indeed is a thorn, ah. Emperor Ming's brows also pursed. I heard he's already at the 10th rank, at such a young age. If he continues to grow, then we must not let him have the opportunity to grow. The corner of First Elder's mouth hooked into a bloody sneer. Exterminated in the cradle, then he will never be promoted to a higher position. Chapter 1309. Ancestor Mo comes in person. 1. His Highness Prince Jean. Not easy to exterminate, ah. Emperor Ming muttered a little and scowled. Since he left Eastern Ling last time, don't know where this amazing and romantic-looking genius went. First Elder stroked his beard. His smile had a trace of strangeness that horrified people. He went to Xianzwood residence to challenge the 9 different palace halls. Xianzwood residence's 9 different palace halls? This is not easy to challenge, ah. Emperor Ming's eyes shone slightly. Extremely difficult to challenge, okay? In order to get the Scarlet Blood Ningpo Figwort, he must select the death grade route. You say, what are the odds he'll walk out alive? A thread of hidden vicious pungent rays of light flashed through First Elder's eyes. First Elder is still wise. Emperor Ming was full of smiles. No wonder First Elder would select this moment to start a war with Eastern Ling. First Elder enjoyed these words from Emperor Ming, slightly narrowed his eyes, and he nodded faintly. Therefore, now is the best chance to defeat Eastern Ling. At that time, even if that exceptional genius comes out alive, with his strength alone, how could he still reverse the entire political situation? Emperor Ming happily smiled. First Elder's words hit the nail on the head. Even if he is strong, at that time, Eastern Ling will already be a thing in our pocket. What can he do? I already sent people to pay close attention to Xianzwood residence. If his luck is good and he comes out alive, humph humph, First Elder coldly snorted several times. Although he didn't say it out loud, the meaning of those words were very clear. If Nangong Luyan really came out alive, at that time, he naturally would fly over to exterminate him. But this First Elder would never have expected that not only did Nangong Luyan safely come out of Xianzwood residence, he even brought Su Luo along to walk once around Central Palace, and had destroyed Central Palace's millennium-old foundation in a short time. These 2 scourges not only didn't leave, instead they even entered to hide in Northern Mo's imperial palace, swaggeringly staying in the most luxurious and gorgeous palace hall. Just a moment ago, Su Luo even looted the imperial kitchen until nothing was left. If First Elder knew of these matters, he wouldn't have made a solemn vow to exterminate Eastern Ling. At this moment, Su Luo, who was lying on the roof, taking all of this in, the corner of her dark red mouth slightly rose in a taunting curve. Want to kill Nangong Luyan? These people's brains have all been bitten by bugs, right? Even dared make this kind of plan? In fact, according to Su Luo's strength, if she lay on the roof, she would certainly be discovered by the commander-ranked First Elder, because the gap in ranks between both sides was too large. But who asked Su Luo to have such good luck? She was a space mage and also condensed out nothingness of space. Su Luo had enveloped herself in nothingness of space, so the spirit aura on her body wouldn't be leaked out. Naturally, the First Elder wouldn't be able to find her. As a result, Emperor Ming was currently still vehemently speaking frankly with assurance. At the moment, the one holding Eastern Ling's border is precisely that Prince Jin's maternal uncle. Wouldn't it be better to just let General Zhao test him? Roan girl won't marry Eastern Ling even if she dies. Even if she was married off, she might also ruin things. First Elder deeply sighed. It's a pity we don't have mind pill. If we had this pill, we could save a lot of trouble. Never mind, send a group of 5 at the 7th rank, 2 at the 8th rank and 1 at the 9th rank, and we'll properly greet that war god of Eastern Ling. 1 at the 9th rank, 2 at the 8th rank and 5 at the 7th rank. Won't it be too much, ah? Second Elder, having heard what was said, cried out in surprise. Northern Mo altogether doesn't have several at the 7th rank, ah. Isn't it making a big fuss over a minor issue? I heard that great general of Eastern Ling that protects the country, Su Zian, is also only at the 6th rank, ah. Emperor Ming smiled faintly. Second uncle at the moment, the great general protecting Eastern Ling is surnamed Lu. He is a 7th rank expert, ah. The stately great general that protects the country is merely only at the 7th rank. Eastern Ling is really weak to the extreme, ah. Second Elder coldly sneered, his laughter full of mockery and disdain. Chapter 1310. Ancestor Mo comes in person, too. Emperor Ming approvingly smiled. Indeed, according to the intelligence he had in his hands, Eastern Ling really was extremely small and weak. Compared to Northern Mo, it wasn't just a little bit weaker, but a lot more. The original plan to send Xianyuan Rong over was also only to guard against the unexpected. A complacent smile flashed in First Elder's vicious eyes. Since Rong girl doesn't need to go make peace through marriage, in that case, we also don't need to be polite with Eastern Ling. Pass on my order. Order young General Zhao to immediately command soldiers in the north to start the fight, catching Eastern Ling unprepared. Inform him he must, in a month's time, step on all the rivers and hills of Eastern Ling. Emperor Ming and Second Elder exchanged a glance, a smile flashing in both their eyes. In the wake of First Elder having finished speaking, a black shadow flashed from the corner and disappeared in place. Su Luo's eyes narrowed slightly. So the one guarding the north was Nangong Liuyun's maternal uncle? If it was him, then it was actually somewhat troublesome. Northern Mo was determined to exterminate Eastern Ling this time, directly sending over 1 at the 9th rank, 2 at the 8th rank and 5 at the 7th rank, making these strong experts participate in the war. For those ordinary soldiers in front of them, any crafty plots and troop arrangements were completely useless. They were like tofu, just letting them freely cut. Su Luo and Nangong Luyun were both Eastern Ling's people. Normally, she didn't feel very patriotic, but now, a kind of anger involuntarily arose in Su Luo's heart. Eastern Ling country's land. How could it allow Northern Mo's iron tower to trample? Cultivation and martial arts, apart from protecting the people you care about. What else was it needed for? Naturally, it was to guard the home and defend the country. Because Nangong Luyun was Eastern Ling's people, therefore, Su Luo naturally by right, had a sense of belonging to Eastern Ling. Su Luo's nose slightly puckered up. At the moment, the best way was to chase after them and noiselessly get rid of those 9th rank, 8th rank and 7th rank on the way. Others might not have this ability, but Su Luo, who had several spirit pets, really had this kind of ability. However, just when Su Luo turned around and was about to leave, suddenly, a radiance exploded out of the eyes of First Elder, who was quietly sitting in the hall. Give me to roll out. First Elder suddenly shouted loudly towards the roof. At the same time, his pair of hands that contained endless spirit power ruthlessly swept a burst towards the roof. Worthy of being at the summit of commander rank expert, the power contained in this strike exploded out towards Su Luo like a tide, and was also scorching hot like boiling lava. Originally, when Su Luo was just about to leave, because the movement of getting up sent out a tiny sound, therefore, it was detected by First Elder. After First Elder realized they were eavesdropped by someone, he simply was ashamed into anger to the peak. so he ruthlessly directly made a move. The strike contained 100% of his power, prepared to directly kill this eavesdropping little thief on the spot. Fortunately, Su Luo had discovered it early. Without waiting for First Elder's palm attack to arrive, she deliberately slipped, proudly tumbling down the roofs with a crashing sound and luckily evading this all-out strike by First Elder. Where the wind from the palm passed, one could only hear the roof intensely sway. The glazed roof tiles fell down one after another. The entire palace hall appeared as if it was going to be forcibly torn open. First Elder, moving quickly, rushed out to the roof. Second Elder rushed out soon after. Only the pitiful Emperor Ming, he as the country's emperor, didn't even have enough time to deal with government affairs. Where would he have the time to cultivate? Therefore, up until now he was merely a third rank and nothing more. Facing these glazed roof tiles that surged down, Emperor Ming had nowhere to hide. Countless tiles smashed towards him, immediately burying him. Fortunately, it didn't hit a vital part. Emperor Ming, swaying, stood up from among the tiles, covered in dirt from head to toe. His face was full of traces of cuts from the sharp tiles. His entire being appeared to cut an extremely sorry figure. Chapter 13:11. Ancestor Mo comes in person 3. Your Majesty, the imperial bodyguards guarding outside. Seeing the main palace hall was about to collapse, each and every one of them flocked over. When they saw Emperor Ming, who cut an extremely sorry figure, every one of them was all stunned. As for Su Luo's side, Su Luo, ever since she slipped down from the roof, before she fell to the ground, she turned over, voluntarily running into the palace where the glazed roof tiles were falling down one after another. She even deliberately used the falling tiles to conceal her figure. First Elder only flew through the roof to get out, but what he hadn't anticipated was that even with his fastest speed, he actually still didn't find that eavesdropping little thief's figure. Could it be that that little thief's strength was already great to the extent it made even him admire? Standing in the empty sky overhead, First Elder's brows tightly pursed, his expression full of haze. Second Elder accompanied by his side, also with creased brows. Elder brother, the other side's speed is very fast. Moreover, strength is also not bad. It was as if First Elder's eyes were shrouded in frost, and he spoke very ruthlessly, capable of hiding on the roof for a long time. Even I didn't discover him. The speed he escaped with was also very fast. In the end, who is this person? Elder brother, he heard our dialogue from before, can he? Second Elder's brows were tightly locked. Just now, they were inside discussing military intelligence. If it was leaked out, the consequences would still be very serious. It can't be people from Eastern Ling. Eastern Ling doesn't have such a strong expert. With regards to this point, First Elder was still very confident. He waved his hand and coldly said, "The fighting on the south side intensify its speed. As for this person that eavesdropped, I know what's going on." You know what's going on? Second Elder's face was bewildered. Yes. Aside from those old guys, who else has such big courage, daring to eavesdrop on this old man's words? First Elder had an angry expression across his whole face, as if he already had a suspect in mind. At this moment, Su Luo, who was buried under the debris, covered up her mouth and nose and started to laugh with hee-hee sounds. Fortunately, her reaction was very quick just now, her mind also moving very quickly. Compared to a regular person's reaction, when discovered, they certainly would flee with the highest speed to escape, but Su Luo did the opposite. Not only did she not run away, instead, she even turned around and directly hid inside the main hall. This point, only someone with Su Luo's big courage would dare to do. First Elder and the other enter this erroneous way of thinking. They never expected that on this earth, there was still such a reckless and daring person as Su Luo in this lifetime. Therefore, he completely didn't expect that the hateful small thief was now hiding in that pile of rubble right under their feet. Not only wasn't she afraid, instead, she even mockingly laughed at their stupidity. At this moment, Emperor Ming, bearing a purplish unclear bruised face, walked out. On his forehead, there was innumerable ash-colored dust. That bright yellow dragon robe on his body now was also cut until it was falling apart. He looked even more destitute than the beggar under a pedestrian bridge. First Elder, seeing him like this, couldn't help but scowl in displeasure. Emperor Ming clearly knew he was implicated by First Elder, because the person that caused the main hall's roof to collapse was precisely this First Elder standing high in midair. However, he dared not blame him in the least bit. Instead, he even accompanied him to smile. First Elder flew down from midair, then coldly cast a glance at Emperor Ming. "Are you blaming this old man for destroying your main palace hall?" Emperor Ming hurriedly denied it, with an obsequious smile across his whole face said, "First Elder seems to regard me as an outsider. Everything in Northern Mo. Weren't they all personally built by you? Isn't everything then yours?" First Elder secretly snorted, expressing his satisfaction with Emperor Ming's words and actions. At that time when Northern Mo was in upheaval, if not for him overseeing matters, how could Xianyuan family abruptly rise? How could they have become a royal family? Chapter 13:12. Ancestor Mo comes in person for. First Elder's cold eyes swept over that pile of rubble and coldly snorted. "The main hall merely suffered some damage, that's all. What does it matter? Compared to the city of crime, this pales in insignificance." The city of crime? Emperor Ming clearly wanted to be excused to return and change into a clean dragon robe, but hearing First Elder mention this matter, he couldn't help but be slightly stunned. What happened to the city of crime? First Elder flew down from midair, standing on the steps with his hands clasped behind his back. He cast a glance at Emperor Ming from up high and looking down, then indifferently said, "The city of crime is far from here. Your information still hasn't transmitted over, naturally don't know. Requesting First Elder to inform me." Emperor Ming cautiously sized up First Elder, as if trying to find some clue on his face. At this moment, First Elder stroked his snow-white beard and heartily laughed. The city of crime was destroyed. A short 6 words immediately stunned Emperor Ming. The city of crime was destroyed? A difficult problem that perplexed Northern Mo for so many years was just so easily solved like this? Emperor Ming had a feeling of placing himself in an ocean of cotton, very giddy and dizzy. How is this possible? What happened in the end? Emperor Ming's pair of eyes were bewildered. In the bewilderment also appeared a trace of excitement that he was unable to suppress. First Elder enigmatically stroked his goat beard, raised his eyes to gaze into the distance. His gaze was deep and remote. "Regarding this matter, it's all thanks to that old friend of mine I haven't seen in many years. Old man Mo really knows the code of brotherhood, actually doing us such a huge favor. It was Central Palace that made the move?" Emperor Ming's eyes twinkled like stars in the night sky. Although people spoke of 10 big powers on the continent, but Central Palace's strength was a lot stronger than Xianyuan the royal family. Therefore, they had always disdained Xianyuan family. This time, they actually spontaneously and voluntarily did Xianyuan family such a big favor? No matter how much Emperor Ming thought, he didn't believe it. But First Elder was still brimming with smiles. Yes, it was indeed Central Palace that made the move. Moreover, Old Man Mo personally did it. Ha ha ha. Didn't expect Old Man Mo still had such a hot-blooded unbridled side like this. Really extremely interesting. Emperor Mo became increasingly bewildered. Ancestor Mo? That Ancestor Mo who was rumored to be careful in his words and smiles, with a frigid manner, having already reached the peak of the saint rank? But why would he, that venerable old man, do Xianyuan family such a huge favor? Don't stay looking dazed. That older brother of mine is sometimes like this, good at understanding others and willing to help others. First Elder smiled, incomparably carefree. So it's like that. Emperor Ming's mood immediately became very good. He simultaneously returned to his senses. Without the city of crime, there will be no worries of future consequences. We can even more fully confront Eastern Ling with all our strength. This good news is really worthy of celebrating. At this moment, Su Luo, who was buried under the rubble, started to secretly regret. City of crime. Wasn't it that Luoyang city they had passed through before? She didn't expect that Xianyuan family had always wanted to eradicate that city of crime but couldn't. Yet, from a freak combination of factors, the entire city was completely destroyed by Old Man Mo. This could be considered indirectly helping Northern Mo with a huge favor, even allowing them to confront Eastern Ling with all their strength. Alas, she was thoroughly out of luck. Su Luo slapped her head and gloomily sighed. First Elder's gleeful laughter came to her ears, and the sound of Emperor Ming's excited speech made the bottom of Su Luo's heart feel even more as if it was heavily hit with a fist. Just when Su Luo was sighing and feeling full of remorse suddenly, an exceptionally huge aura enveloped overhead of Northern Mo's imperial palace. Even Su Luo, hiding under the rubbles and protected by nothingness of space, had a feeling of hair-raising panic. Old Man Mo. An alarmed signal came from the bottom of Su Luo's heart. Chapter 13:13. Ancestor Mo comes in person 5. Damn that Ancestor Mo. He actually really chased all the way into the imperial palace. This really was his spirit still lingers on, refusing to disperse. Although she had soaked in the clear spirit pond, Su Luo was still somewhat worried. She sniffed her left sleeve and looked it over and over again. Her heart was worried and apprehensive, afraid to be caught by Old Man Mo on the spot. Speaking about her current situation, it was simply too horrible. Regardless of whether she was found by Old Man Mo or by First Elder of Northern Mo, they were all paths to death. Su Luo was really suspicious that when she stepped out today she didn't bring a horoscope. Otherwise, how was it that she kept encountering such bad luck? Not only Su Luo felt Old Man Mo's aura, the First Elder of Northern Mo also sensed it. After sensing this aura, First Elder even laughed and said to Emperor Ming, "This older brother of mine is really interesting. This is coming personally to ask for benefits, oh?" Emperor Ming's strength was very low. Originally, he was intimidated by this aura until he shivered and could barely stand up. After hearing First Elder's words, his heart relaxed. With great difficulty, he squeezed out a trace of a smile. Second Elder patted Emperor Ming's shoulder. "Relax, Elder Ancestor Mo and Elder Brother's relationship is pretty good. He shouldn't put forward an excessive request." First Elder nodded his head, in approval of Second Elder's words. Three of them raised their heads and stood, waiting for Elder Ancestor Mo to arrive. That intensely powerful pressure became stronger and stronger. The entire imperial city was enveloped in this slaughtering haze. Palace maids, eunuchs and others who never cultivated. Each and every one of them kneeled in place, whole bodies trembling, with cold sweat directly flowing out, as if they were about to suffocate. First Elder's eyebrows gradually wrinkled. Second Elder's eyebrows twisted. "Older brother, this situation feels a bit abnormal?" Elder Ancestor Mo and Xianyuan family were allies, at least, advancing and retreating together. How was it that this pressure contained an endless murderous aura, causing people's blood to roll over and over, as if a huge stone was blocking their chest? He was at elementary commander rank, and already felt it was this intense. Then wouldn't each and every one of those low ranks have passed out? Second Elder didn't guess wrong. Now, the entire imperial palace was like some ghost prison. On the ground, bodies laid in a mess, all of their complexions were pale, they had sunk into deep unconsciousness. It could be seen how terrible was the strength of an expert at the peak of saint rank. Now a sky-bluish figure slowly appeared in the sky. This figure seemed to rule over this area of the sky, with horrifying strength, capable of producing clouds and rain with one turn of his hand. Seeing the old man floating over with fast speed, First Elder's eyes opened wide in an instant. This person, this beggar-like old man, his aura and face were very similar to older brother Mo's. But no matter what, First Elder couldn't understand. His older brother Mo usually had an unhealthy obsession with cleanliness. His clothes were always spotless, neat and clean. How could he become like this? Older brother Mo. First Elder accompanied with a smile and took a step forward. At this moment, Elder Ancestor Mo's whole body gave off an intense, strong murderous aura. His pair of tiger-like round eyes were sharp like swords. Seeing First Elder approach, Elder Ancestor Mo was even more rude. He extended his powerful and strong arm, taking a hold of First Elder and lifting him up high. This action simply made everyone dumbfounded. Second Elder was furious, but didn't dare say a word. His face had a rainbowish color. Emperor Ming was completely incredulous. Because just now, First Elder had boasted how great his relationship was with Elder Ancestor Mo, how they called each other brothers. But as soon as Elder Ancestor Mo appeared, without demur he lifted up Xianyuan family's strongest first elder like lifting up a chick. Chapter 13-14. Ancestor Mo comes in person. 6. Under the pile of rubble, Su Luo's pair of round eyes unblinkingly observed the events outside through a tiny crack. Good, very good lift, best to toss that bragging old man flying. Su Luo waved her wrist, cheering for Ancestor Mo secretly in her heart. Both sides were her enemies, but now, these two enemies were striving against each other. This was the kind of scene Su Luo liked to see. Don't knows if it was because Su Luo's luck returned, but she guessed half of it right. Ancestor Mo darted looks of hate. Fingers like pillars supporting heaven, lifted up First Elder and wouldn't let go. In a coarse tone with rough breathing he snarled, "Hand her over." First Elder nearly spit out blood from being depressed. But his strength was inferior and he couldn't struggle free, he could only smile in accompaniment. "Older brother Mo, what is this?" This older brother Mo seemed a bit abnormal. Ancestor Mo glared at him coldly, seeing that First Elder not only didn't answer him, and instead even questioned him. Ancestor Mo immediately became angry due to his irascible temper. He didn't even think and immediately following, threw First Elder flying. Su Luo saw this and secretly grumbled inwardly, because the direction Ancestor Mo threw First Elder just so happened to be straight towards where she was. This gave Su Luo the misconception that Ancestor Mo had already known about her hiding spot. However, the most important thing right now was to withstand the waves from this attack. If First Elder really hit over here, if she didn't dodge, then she would be smashed into a meat patty by the pressure. If she dodged, she would definitely make a sound. Then her traces would be discovered. Just when Su Luo muttered about this, risk being discovered by Ancestor Mo, she still was about to use teleport. Suddenly, First Elder's body, who was just about to hit her, turned over rapidly. He stepped on tiptoes on the pile of rubble, changed his figure's position, and then stood firmly on the ground. Normally right now Su Luo would heave a sigh of relief, but for the pitiful Su Luo, it was still a tragedy. Because when First Elder stepped on tiptoes on the debris to use its strength to rebound up, the tip of his toes just so happened to directly step on our Su Luo's forehead. Su Luo was originally squatting, but being stepped on by First Elder like this, immediately fell flat on her back in a mess. Fortunately, the debris fell one after another, deeply burying Su Luo. The sound Su Luo made when falling was also covered up, coupled with First Elder's attention being completely on Ancestor Mo. Therefore, Su Luo once again luckily escaped this calamity. Now, Ancestor Mo had tossed aside First Elder, and picked up Second Elder in passing. He repeated his expression, actions and tone, to burst out roaring, "Hand her over." Being roared at by an expert at the peak of Saint rank from such a close distance just now, Second Elder, who had considered himself a strong expert, his blood churned immediately from this roar, blood flowing from the 7 apertures on his face. His complexion was pale as paper, body seemingly boneless, as if it was about to collapse dejectedly at any time. "I'll kill you guys if you don't say." Ancestor Mo lifted Second Elder up with both hands, prepared to throw Second Elder at any time and smash him to death. It could be said this action for Ancestor Mo was really a well-practiced one. On the way here, in order to interrogate out Su Luo's hiding place, Ancestor Mo had used this method and already smashed a lot of people to death like this. At this moment, Second Elder almost cried from being depressed. Both of his ears started buzzing from being jolted. He simply couldn't hear what Ancestor Mo was saying. However, due to survival instinct, he could feel his life suffered a serious threat. As a result, this Second Elder, who had the arrogant posture from the older generation in front of the third princess, immediately howled loudly, crying for help from First Elder. "Older brother! Save me Quickly come to save me Isn't Ancestor Mo your good brother Quickly ask his elder to stop." Chapter 13-15. Nine-tailed spirit fox. Second Elder's cries were miserable, but First Elder's face was full of helplessness. He was so anxious that he wanted to speak, but considering Old Man Mo's tyrannical abuse, he once again shut his mouth. "Elder brother, save me Second Elder saw that First Elder didn't have any intent to make a move to help, and he madly howled, as if tearing his heart and breaking his lungs, because he had a very bad premonition. First Elder, seeing this, muttered to himself, then summoned up the courage to smile obsequiously at Ancestor Mo. Older brother Mo. Ancestor Mo's pair of tiger eyes that was snow sword-like slanted horizontally over that boundless imposing manner, like madly rolling ocean waves, immediately threatened First Elder to a stop. Bang! Ancestor Mo, without saying a word, directly sent Second Elder flying out. What made Su Luo feel like she wanted to collapse was that the direction Second Elder was tossed in was the same direction First Elder was just tossed in. Su Luo howled in grief in her heart. Could it be that the heavens had preordained that she die? Could it be she was doomed to be smashed to death by Ancestor Mo? Could it really be the cycle of heaven's law? Just when Su Luo was observing a moment of silence in tribute to herself, First Elder condensed out a ball of light and wrapped up Second Elder, who shot over, decreasing the power of his fall. So in this way, Second Elder escaped this calamity. Although he was wounded slightly, with regards to his life, it was harmless. Second Elder had escaped this calamity, and his butt sat down heavily on the rubble, patting his chest with lingering fear. Really a close call ah. Just now his yin and yang were almost separated. Second Elder continuously moaned in pain over there, and Su Luo was so depressed that she was about to smash against a wall. Because Second Elder's butt sat down like this, just so happened to sit steadily on that bit of crack she was looking through, not even leaving a seam. Su Luo complained endlessly in her heart, but under such an urgent situation, she could only grin and bear it. Don't even need to mention how sullen her heart felt. Second Elder escaped a calamity, but Ancestor Mo didn't plan to let the people in the Imperial Palace go. One could only see his long arm move and grab the shivering Emperor Ming. In front of Ancestor Mo, who was at the summit of the saint rank, the stately Emperor of Northern Mo didn't even dare to breathe. Hand over the person. Hand her over. Ancestor Mo pinched Emperor Ming by the neck, shaking him in a frenzied manner. Cough, cough, cough. Emperor Ming's face swelled to a purplish-blue color, as if in the next moment he would die. First Elder, seeing this, his brows tightened even more. Emperor Ming was Northern Mo's emperor. To be choked to death like this, and were it to be spread outside, how could Northern Mo's Xianyuan family still have the face to greet people? How could they still have a foot to stand in this world? Not enough strength, so he could only outsmart Ancestor Mo. First Elder took a step forward, coughing once to clear his throat. Older brother Mo, who are you looking for? Might as well say it to let us listen. If the person is in Northern Mo, we will definitely help you find that person. In front of the generation of disciples and grandchildren, First Elder sat up on high. In front of Ancestor Mo, he was as petty and low as dust. Ancestor Mo's deeply cold pupils swept First Elder a glance, directly swinging his hand and tossing Emperor Ming to the ground. Although Emperor Ming received some external injuries, fortunately his life was saved. Ancestor coldly humphed. Find people. Who are you looking for? First Elder kept a flattering smile on. Now he could also see that there seemed to be a bit of a problem with Ancestor Mo's mental state. Looking for who? Ancestor Mo only felt his mind go black. His wisdom was an area of chaos. Ancestor Mo shook his head and coldly humphed. Don't know. Don't know. First Elder almost cried. You don't know who you are looking for yet still flew to Northern Mo's Imperial Palace to force us to hand over the person? This was rather bullying too intolerably But First Elder only dared to silently ridicule this in his heart, completely didn't dare to say these words out loud. Ancestor Mo suddenly felt a burst of hot blood rushing up to his head. His figure swayed, both hands covering his head, as if it was very painful. First Elder and Second Elder exchanged a glance, puzzlement and bewilderment flashing through their eyes. In the end, what happened to Elder Ancestor of Mo family? How was it that he looked like a delirious madman? Could it be that he had recoil of madness? Once he recalled recoil of madness, these three words, a trace of course, flashed through First Elder's eyes. It seemed Ancestor Mo ought to really have suffered the recoil of madness. Otherwise he would not do something like this. But the next second, First Elder's brows wrinkled deeply. Because Ancestor Mo's strength had reached the peak of saint rank but lost his reasoning ability, he was more terrifying than at any other time. First Elder had just thought of this point. Over there, Ancestor Mo had already gone mad. One could only see him suddenly fly to midair. Older brother, does this mean Ancestor Mo is about to leave? Second Elder asked with lingering fear. First Elder's complexion was extremely ugly. Afraid it may not be so. Sure enough, the next second, Ancestor Mo's, that crazily strong palm strike, poured down like heavy rain, enveloping the entire northern Mo imperial palace. Peak of saint rank, how great was that pressure? How hard and fierce was that palm strength? One could see him send out palm strikes from being angered. His palm strength was like a spider web, from the center to slap in all directions. Suddenly, the entire northern Mo imperial palace seemed to have sunk into the vast body of the ocean. One after another, the splendid and magnificent palace was smashed into pieces in the blink of an eye, becoming mud and crushed stone, regarded as nothing but dust, disappearing in the dust of history. Oh heavens! Emperor Ming watched as his imperial palace was destroyed. His entire person became rigid like a Buddha sculpture. Completely didn't know what kind of reaction he should have. Just now he was still getting excited over Northern Mo's army trampling Eastern Ling's territory. And he was even giving thanks to Ancestor Mo for exterminating the city of crime for Xianyuan family. Only how long had it been his imperial palace? His imperial palace was suddenly forcibly destroyed. First Elder. Emperor Ming had a crying sullen expression. As the stately emperor of Northern Mo, a stately man over 2 meters tall, but now, he was about to cry. First Elder clenched his fists at his side until crisp sounds rang out loud. His expression was hazed over, facial features twisting malevolently. Clearly, he was already at the peak of rage. Su Luo secretly in her heart encouraged First Elder. Rush up and have a fight with Ancestor Mo. But even if it was this huge of a humiliation, First Elder still did his utmost to bear it. Clenching his teeth to coldly say, "Don't lower yourself to argue with a madman." Central Palace's Mo family and Northern Mo's Xianyuan royal family has always been in alliance. Therefore, the damage of the Imperial Palace, Central Palace will definitely compensate it. Su Luo heard this and secretly despised this First Elder in her heart. Central Palace would compensate? Compensate fart. Central Palace now was so poor that they even couldn't wear underpants. If they didn't come to loot and burn your house, was already considered not bad. Still want them to compensate? This notion of First Elders was simply a pipe dream. Emperor Ming also knew that First Elder was personally greedy and afraid of death. But if First Elder really was to rush up and something happened to him, then at that time, Northern Mo would be a herd of dragons without a head. It would be even more troublesome. Therefore, even though Emperor Ming's heart was anxious, furious and in pain, he still silently accepted First Elder's statement. The entire imperial city, an imperial city that one couldn't see the end off in the horizon, underneath Ancestor Mo's indiscriminate bombing, was nearly razed to the ground. Su Luo's heart was somewhat worried for Nangong Luyan. When she came out, he was just in the midst of secluded cultivation. Don't know if he would suffer from old madman's interference. However, before Su Luo could finish being worried over here, the battlefield had already shifted over. A fist that contained the endless strength of heaven and earth smashed towards First Elder's direction in a manner that could destroy the heavens and wipe out the earth. Very clearly, Ancestor Mo had smashed the entire imperial palace and still couldn't find the person he was looking for. Therefore, he gave vent to his anger on First Elder's body. He who suffered recoil of madness and lost his reasoning ability didn't even recognize his own son and younger brother. Then, how was he able to recognize this Xianyuan family's First Elder? In the wake of this fiercely explosive surging fist, the temperature on First Elder's face, in a flash, dropped to the freezing point. His whole body seemed to be enveloped in frost, with his anger soaring to the sky, bullying too intolerably. First Elder finally was enraged. Momentarily, his rage was like boiling lava, getting out of control. The spirit power around First Elder, in a flash, condensed into a cylinder. He flew to midair and smashed it fiercely towards Ancestor Mo. Enough was enough. Being forced to this step, the first elder, who was always in a high position, finally couldn't bear it any longer. Good. Seeing both sides fight together, Su Luo, who had slowly pried open the rubble, waved her fist in excitement. It's great that first elder got angry, simply too great that he was angry. The scene Su Luo looked forward to finally began to play out. But what made Su Luo spit out blood was, faced with the column of flame condensed out by an expert at the summit of commander rank, Ancestor Mo didn't even bother to look, as if he was impatient. Then in passing, pushed it aside. Really was just a push in passing. Afterwards, First Elder's column of flame seemed to be blown by the wind and skewed to the side as it passed by. This was simply a naked insult. First Elder was so angry that both pair of eyes become bloodshot. Even his nose turned crooked. Boom, boom, boom. A countless number of columns of fire was condensed out by First Elder, frantically shooting towards Ancestor Mo's position. This time, First Elder had gone insane from anger. He even squeezed out every last bit of power. But Ancestor Mo only frowned, a cold light flashing through his eyes. Afterwards, he condensed out a ball of white light from his palm. Icebound world. Ancestor Mo roared. The white-colored ball of light suddenly smashed towards First Elder's forehead. Now First Elder's figure seemed to be fixed in place, motionlessly standing there. The transparent white ball of light exploded over his head. Afterwards, First Elder's entire body wasn't good. It seemed as if he completely lacked the strength to resist, just maintaining that posture of both hands in an attack position. His entire person was wrapped up by this frost to a stop, motionlessly standing there like a statue. This made Su Luo helplessly recall that time when she was sealed in ice by Li Outyan and drifted in the ocean scene. Now this cold ice, after freezing First Elder, did not stop and spread quickly in all four directions. This kind of unprecedented cold air coming from the heart spread in all directions like a spider web. Its speed was so fast as to be astonishing. An astonished thought flashed through Su Luo's eyes, because she was watching as the surrounding ground froze over. Moreover, this cold air was incomparably ice-cold. So cold that even Su Luo, who was buried under the rubble, started to shiver. So cold. Su Luo took a deep breath. Just because of this breath, Su Luo got into trouble. Ancestor Mo's pair of majestic tiger eyes originally had shot towards Second Elder. Now in a flash, it shot madly towards Su Luo. After Second Elder escaped that calamity, he hit upon an inspiration, and a palm slapped towards Su Luo's hiding place. Second Elder knew a person was hiding in that place. Su Luo inwardly complained in her heart. Just like this, she was discovered? Not waiting for Second Elder's palm strike to arrive, Su Luo had already condensed her spirit power, and in a low voice said, "Teleport." Following this sound, a slight spirit power fluctuation flashed through the surroundings. Afterwards, Su Luo's figure disappeared in a flash. Ancestor Mo's pair of eyes momentarily opened wide. That's right, just this type of spirit fluctuation. That delicious tasty blood. The blood he traveled over thousands of mountains and 10,000 waters to find. Ancestor Mo swallowed some saliva, taking a large step forward. Only one step, and he arrived at the place Su Luo was hiding before. Ancestor Mo's long arm extended. Suddenly, all the rubble was swept clean, revealing a semicircle area of the ground that was empty. Not here. Ancestor Mo's thick black sword-like eyebrows tightly wrinkled. Just now clearly it was here. Now Second Elder was also somewhat dumbstruck. Okay? Just now he clearly sensed a person. How was it that in the blink of an eye, the person was gone? Caused him to hit upon an inspiration just a moment ago, because that little eavesdropping thief ought to be hiding in there. Ancestor Mo's cold and detached gaze shot towards Second Elder. A burst of panic came from Second Elder's heart. He stammeringly said, This here doesn't have a person. Actually dared to say didn't have a person? Ancestor Mo instantly became angry. He reached out and directly slapped a palm on Second Elder's head, cursing in a rage. Idiot! Afterwards, the crazed Ancestor Mo disappeared into the horizon. Don't know what direction he went, chasing after that person. The pitiful Second Elder was hit by such a slap. Immediately, his entire person didn't feel good, because his head actually was hit into his neck by that slap. Second brother. First elder roared, but his entire body was frozen by ice, standing there motionless. Don't need to say movement, ah. Even his voice couldn't pass through, to be transmitted out. Emperor Ming's eyes had a shocked expression. The commander-ranked second elder actually had his head slapped into his body from one hit. That old madman from just now was too terrible. Second elder's rigid body slowly fell backwards. Then it heavily smashed on the ground. The pitiful second elder, just because he said an extra sentence. Afterwards, he would dubiously die in such tragic circumstances. Hateful. Central Palace bullies people too intolerably. Xianyuan family could not coexist with you guys anymore. The statue-like first elder's pair of hands clenched into fists. His eyes were full of wisps of blood, igniting with a raging inferno of hatred. And the main culprit, Su Luo, that caused this deep enmity between Central Palace and Xianyuan family, now where was she? In fact, right now Su Luo was also not so good. Just now, in a moment of desperation, she had no choice and could only choose to use teleport to escape. But Nangong Luyan had warned Su Luo before. With regards to Ancestor Mo, who was at the summit of Saint Rank, the spirit fluctuations caused by teleport would let him feel a clue. However, Su Luo simply didn't have a choice. If she didn't teleport, very likely when Ancestor Mo saw her at first glance, he would open his mouth and suck all of her blood dry. Su Luo also didn't know where she teleported to. She only knew to continuously teleport. Continuously running was a correct choice. Because Su Luo considered Nangong Liuyan's situation, so she didn't stop over in the periphery of the imperial city. Rather, she headed towards the southwest, madly rushing forward with her fastest speed. The southwest direction was the entrance to the dark forest. Su Luo knew that after escaping into the dark forest, the odds of her survival would increase by a bit. However, Su Luo's teleportability was still at the beginning rank, and had just entered the door. She had just escaped for less than 1 hour before meeting disaster. Because she had just wanted to teleport again, but discovered that Ancestor Mo, this lunatic, now stood right in front of her. Su Luo's entire person immediately became a stiff statue. Ancestor Mo had his back to her, both hands crossed behind his back. His black robe made noise from being pulled by the wind. His whole body gave off an incomparably formidable and oppressive cold atmosphere. How could this be a madman? This clearly was an unparalleled formidable expert at the top of his game. Su Luo quietly retreated several steps. But just at this moment, Ancestor Mo turned around. This face of his was soiled with all kinds of dirt. This greatly damaged the image of a strong, overbearing expert at the top of his game from just now. Still want to escape? A cold and gloomy laugh came from Ancestor Mo's mouth. Su Luo was so miserable that she was about to cry. Ancestor Mo, who suffered recoil of madness, couldn't even recognize his own son and younger brother, but could recognize her at one glance. Su Luo thought about it, and discovered that she didn't have such a great charm. She reckoned the greatest reason was that her blood was really tasty for Ancestor Mo, to the extent that it was constantly on his mind. Su Lu squeezed out a stiff smile on her face. He, your elder is also here, basking in the moonlight. Ah. Really a coincidence, ah ha ha ha. A sinister and crazed smile appeared on Ancestor Mo's face, his tone cold as frost. Come here, your younger sister. Ah. Su Luo violently cursed in her heart. If this ant went over, it would be like taking the initiative to deliver blood to you. Was this ant that stupid? Su Luo was thinking of scattering Ancestor Mo's attention. Then anoint the soles of her feet with oil to flee quickly. However, before Su Luo could think of a way, she saw the black shadow in front of her flash. Ancestor Mo had already appeared within 1/3 of a meter range of Su Luo. Ancestor Mo's action was matchless fast. He reached out a hand to pull Su Luo's pure white as jade bright wrist. Hateful. Su Luo miserably grabbed at her hair. What to do? Could it be her blood was preordained to be sucked dry by Ancestor Mo? Afterwards, she would become a dry female corpse? This kind of method of dying was too depressing, okay? Su Luo thought that Ancestor Mo would directly suck her blood in large mouthfuls. But outside of her expectations, Ancestor Mo's pair of eyes actually stared fixedly at her snow-white bright wrist. His eyes had a complicated and abstruse expression, making it completely impossible for people to see through his thoughts. Now Su Luo was in the middle of quickly consulting with Little Stone in her mind. Little Stone, Great-Grandpa Stone, quickly think of a way. Su Luo's urgent tone inquired. She didn't know who the little stone was before being sealed inside the small stone. But what Su Luo did know was before he certainly had reached the summit. The little stone humphed twice. This trouble was completely brought on by yourself. Not going to help. What's called I brought it on by myself. Isn't this me being unlucky and encountering this? Su Luo would not accept this. Being unlucky and encountered this? You have the nerve to say so? If it was not for you being gluttonous and going to what imperial kitchen? If you stayed obediently inside the palace like that Nangong of yours, how could this damned old man find you? If it was not for you being neurotic and overly curious, following into the main palace hall to eavesdrop on what military secret, how could you be discovered by that first elder and with a slap, was sent into the rubble? If it was not for you not being able to endure the cold, how could you be discovered by this damned old man, and then chased to be killed by him? Little Stone pitter-pattered to criticize non-stop. Su Luo gloomily said, "But I discovered third princess's innate skill. Weren't you also very excited about it? That girl, even if she was subdued by you, will also be used by you. Your daddy would be excited for fart." Little Stone humphed twice. Then are you going to help or not? Don't have a way to help. The little Stone's brows were tightly locked. Your daddy now is just at the most critical point of advancing a rank. I feel the fire element in my body is still too little. How could I help you? Let alone to say, even if I want to help you, I'm also powerless. That damned old man's strength is much stronger than mine. Su Luo was immediately speechless. She considered the little stone the greatest hidden trump card in her hand. If even the little stone had no way to help her, then she would really have to wait for death. Now Ancestor Mo still stared fixedly at Su Luo's wrist. That expression was sinister and strange, making Su Luo's blood run cold. If she wasn't being pulled, the soles of her feet would have already been anointed with oil as she quickly ran away. All of a sudden, Ancestor Mo moved. It seemed as if he had looked at this wrist long enough. Afterwards, he lowered his head and fiercely bit down on Su Luo's wrist. This hateful, smelly old man. Su Luo miserably grabbed at her hair. She could clearly feel that the blood in her body was quickly flowing away. After going through smearing Nangong Luyin with blood and having Ancestor Mo drink her blood, after these 2 times huge blood loss, Su Luo originally didn't have that much blood. This time, if Ancestor Mo sucked a few mouthfuls more, Su Luo would directly dry up. What to do? Just when Su Luo didn't know what to do, suddenly, a little white-colored ball of fur jumped out from Su Luo's space. Nine-tailed spirit fox. Su Luo's eyes shone slightly. In one grab, she lifted up this little guy. After the nine-tailed spirit fox came out, she flew directly onto Su Luo's shoulder. A tiny little ball, and she still stood there, full of bluster. Seeing Ancestor Mo suck Su Luo's blood, her little face immediately became furious. Although this old bastard in front gave off a very strong aura, so strong that it made this fox want to run away, but the nine-tailed spirit fox still bravely stood in place. Ancestor Mo could feel the hostility and ire from the nine-tailed spirit fox, but with regards to him, what did this kind of expression count as? The nine-tailed spirit fox was merely a very small ant in his eyes, completely unable to give rise to a wave. Therefore Ancestor Mo simply didn't give a damn for the little nine-tailed spirit fox. He continued to suck with a lowered head. Just at this moment, the little nine-tailed spirit fox on Su Luo's shoulder ignited from head to toe with a formidable spirit aura. Afterwards, it quickly bit fiercely down on Ancestor Mo. The little nine-tailed spirit fox's teeth were sharp as a blade, but it simply couldn't bite through Ancestor Mo's defense. A dark, ruthless sneer came from Ancestor Mo's mouth. He coldly snorted repeatedly. Little thing that overestimated its ability, go die. Finished speaking, he heavily flung the little nine-tailed spirit fox out. But just when he was flinging the little nine-tailed spirit fox out, a huge change suddenly occurred. Su Luo actually saw on Ancestor Mo's dirty head. Unexpectedly, Two goat horns slowly start to grow out. Chapter 13:16. Frantic along the hallway 1. Seeing two small horns gradually grow out from Ancestor Mo's head, a trace of ecstasy flashed through Su Luo's eyes. What did this mean? This meant little foxes transform into sheep technique was effective. Su Luo still remembered at that time in the 9 different palace halls, Li Yaoyao was changed into a lamb by the little fox. That scene was extremely funny. However, the smile had just appeared at the corner of Su Luo's mouth when it became rigid again. Because that tiny sheep horn, in the speed that the eyes could see, quickly shrank back. Su Luo's heart was suddenly jolted. She had no time to think. In one grab, she swept up the little 9-tailed spirit fox that was tossed to the ground. She then silently mouthed teleport, and her figure flashed far away. At this moment, the surroundings were silent. Ancestor Mo slowly opened his eyes. His bewildered gaze swept the surroundings, while his brows were knotted tightly. He shook his head. With great difficulty, he became clear-headed. After becoming clear-headed, Ancestor Mo simply was about to go insane. Just now, he was actually changed to the weakest little lamb. How could he, as a stately saint-rank expert, endure it? Ancestor Mo, in the midst of rage, his throat seemed to contain an intense explosive force. His chi sunk into his dantian and traveled up, and his throat gave a furious cry. Ah! This lion-like roar seemed to contain the endless energy of heaven and earth, the surrounding mountains exploding one after another. The rock from the mountain and mud rolled down. 100 and 1,000-year-old ancient trees, in a flash, became fine powder and drifted in the air in an instant. Thousands of mountain birds disappeared, and 10,000 footprints by men were wiped out. Within a range of 5,000 meters, it was an area of deathly stillness. Although Su Luo slipped away very quickly, she still suffered the effect from the residual power. Her foot staggered, almost falling to the ground. Su Luo turned around to look, and saw the mountain range that was leveled to the ground behind her, a terrified expression flashing through her eyes. This old madman was simply not human. Fortunately, she ran very quickly, otherwise, she would suffer a similar fate as those trees and become fine powder. Su Luo, with lingering fear, wiped away the sweat on her forehead. Afterwards, she fished out a spirit restoration pill from her space and swallowed it. Then she quickly ran away. Inside her space, the little stone speechlessly sighed. Spirit restoration pill doesn't have any effect on your mind's strength. You swallowing can be considered not having swallowed it. While Su Luo ran, she also sighed in despair. This is because there's nothing else to be done. Okay. That old madman is about to chase over. At that time, I still don't know what to do. Okay. The medicine and drug ingredients are all in here. It wasn't that Su Luo didn't want to teleport, rather, her mental strength needed to recover. Her mental strength had no way to support her continued limitless use of teleport. The little stone thought a bit, deciding to give Su Luo a slight pointer. In fact, you can refine a speed medicine. Speed medicine? Su Luo was somewhat puzzled. Isn't it a medicine that only an elite apothecary can refine? Su Luo did know about speed medicine. Once you drank a bottle, you could maintain a speed 10 times the original within 2 hours when running at high speed. If she had speed medicine in hand, Su Luo might really be able to escape old madman's pursuit. The little stone's eyes narrowed in a smile. The drug ingredients you plundered from Mo family have the formula and drug ingredients to make speed medicine. Moreover, these were already half-made already. Su Luo thought a bit, finally making a fist, and made a firm resolution. Okay, refine, then I'll just refine. Su Luo checked the surroundings once over, then found an ancient tree in the middle that had a large hole in its trunk. After going in, she restored the entrance to its original state. If no one carefully examined it, it would be very difficult to discover that a person hid inside this ancient tree. This tree was the size that took 5 people hugging it to encircle it. After Su Luo entered, she discovered that the inside was very spacious. There was no problem in space whether she sat or lay inside. Chapter 13:17. Frantic along the hallway 2. Su Luo sat cross-legged on the ground, her spirit very quickly floating into her space. The Su Luo outside of space's physiological functions was lowered to the lowest level because her spirit had floated into her space. The frequency of her heartbeat and breathing almost couldn't be heard. Even if Ancestor Mo arrived here, if he didn't carefully search, he would still have a very difficult time finding traces of Su Luo. After her spirit floated into space, Su Luo directly arrived in front of the medicinal furnace. With the formula and also the drug ingredients, moreover, it was already a half-finished product. This half-finished product was roundish and blackish, and it looked very gooey. Before, Su Luo had glanced at it, but if the little stone hadn't said so, she completely couldn't guess that this thing was actually the half-finished product of speed medicine. Arriving in front of Zihua's medicinal cauldron, Su Luo, with single-hearted devotion, then started to refine the speed medicine according to the formula. Su Luo knew she only had one chance because if she had not guessed wrongly, Ancestor Mo would very quickly find her hiding place. Therefore, this time's refining, she must succeed and was not allowed to fail. The time for refining medicine passed very quickly, and time gradually passed. Seeing the rich aroma coming from Zihua's medicinal cauldron, a pleasantly surprised expression also flashed across Su Luo's eyes. Worthy of being Zihua's medicinal cauldron, the success rate was much greater than a normal medicinal cauldron. Otherwise, based on Su Luo's current level as an advanced apothecary, the odds of refining a speed medicine was very low. But this time, and simply her first time, she more or less succeeded. Looking at that greenish smoke rising up in spirals, Su Luo's heart was full of expectations. Now, she held her breath with rapt attention, her gaze unblinkingly staring at Zihua's medicinal cauldron. Her pair of hands stuck tightly to the outside surface of Zihua's medicinal cauldron, constantly sensing the refining situation inside. Just when Su Luo was wholeheartedly refining the speed medicine, suddenly, a noisy sound came from outside. Old Madman Mo actually really chased over? Su Luo plaintively sighed. Yes, before, she and Nangong Luyan indeed washed away Old Madman Mo's aura that had tainted their bodies. But the hateful thing was that just not long ago, her blood was once again sucked away by Old Madman Mo. Su Luo very regretfully thought. Ancestor Mo certainly knew that after he sucked her blood, her body would be stained with his aura. So this was the reason why he would deliberately suck her blood, right? Outside, the noises became clearer and clearer, however. The Su Luo in space dared not be even a bit distracted, because whether the speed medicine would succeed depended on this one go. If she failed, it would be failing through lack of final effort. Old Madman Mo followed Su Luo and chased after her the whole journey. Because he was played with, so his entire person looked even more like a lunatic. His hair was dirty and matted, clothing ragged and whole body was filthy. However, his strength was endless, as if in his eyes, the whole world could be toppled with a raise of his hand. The furious old Madman Mo chased over all the way. What's pitiful was this mountain range. When Ancestor Mo chased over, his pair of hands did not stay idle. Wherever he went, the earth would fall in succession, and the ancient trees on both sides would become fine powder. A countless numbers of birds and beasts silently died under his powerful pressure. A madman was not scary. What's scary was a madman whose strength was too powerful. This kind of madman, his destructive power was simply too astonishing. Ancestor Mo followed that seemingly there and not there aura the entire way, unrelentingly chasing towards Su Luo's hiding place. Time passed in seconds and minutes. Inside her space, Su Luo tightly watched that aroma coming from Zihua's medicinal cauldron become richer and richer. The beads of sweat rolled down her forehead drop by drop, but it didn't seem as if Su Luo felt it. The noises outside became more and more intense. Chapter 13:18. Frantic along the whole way 3. Although Ancestor Mo wasn't certain which tree Su Luo was in, but he was certain that Su Luo was definitely in this place. The furious Ancestor Mo was also not polite. In the time it took to wave his hand, all the ancient trees were pulled up by their roots and were tossed to the ground. Then, with a sweep of his sleeves, all the ancient trees became dust. More and more beads of sweat appeared on Su Luo's forehead, finally tumbling down drop by drop. Suddenly, her eyes brightened. It's done. Speed medicine was finally refined successfully. Su Luo didn't have time to wait. She opened the lid of Zihua's medicinal cauldron and took out a tube of speed medicine, opened her mouth and drank it. Cough, 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 so hot, ah! How sharp was Ancestor Mo's perception. Su Luo had just given off the sound, and soon after, the wind from his palm strike followed relentlessly and arrived. Immediately, Su Luo had a terrified feeling of being enveloped by the shadow of death. Run! Su Luo had no time to think. Just when the tree was falling back from the wind of the palm strike, Su Luo's figure turned into a shadow as she exploded ahead to rush out. She hadn't rushed out for more than several steps before Su Luo had a very strong excited feeling. Oh heavens! Worthy of being the speed medicine from Legends. This speed was so fast that it simply wasn't human. It made a person feel as if they were faster than flying. Su Luo only felt the wind blow by on both sides with whoosh sounds. It was as if the wind was at the soles of her feet. She ran forward with flying speed, feeling as if she was soaring on clouds harnessing the mist. If it was like what Little Stone said, this speed was faster than before by a full 10 times. Don't need to say how excited and moved Su Luo was, just speaking of old Madman Mo over there. After he sensed Su Luo's breath and sound, without saying anything more, he ruthlessly pounced over. But a matter that he, as an expert at the summit of Saint Rank, never expected, was that just when she was within reach, the little girl he viewed as merely an ant, in front of his eyes, suddenly soared on clouds and harnessed the mist, in an instant flying far away. Ancestor Mo's entire person became dull. Soon after, he was in extreme rage. First, he was almost changed into a lamb. Now, she made a getaway once again. Ancestor Mo's entire person didn't feel good. A strong expert has their dignity. A crazy expert's dignity was not allowed to be profaned even more. Ah! Ancestor Mo gave a crazed roar. The blood that he liked to drink the most, just like this, grew legs and ran away. How could he endure this? Ancestor Mo originally was prejudiced. The Ancestor Mo that became crazy after was even more crazily prejudiced. Now his entire face was twisted sinisterly, and his entire person sunk into a berserk state. Chase, chase, chase. Wind gathered at Ancestor Mo's feet, and he mobilized all the spirit energy in his body. Momentarily, his speed soared to the peak. Su Luo frantically ran up front. However, very quickly, her face changed to a very miserable expression. It no longer had the excitement and ecstasy from the start. Because although speed medicine could very quickly upgrade her potential, making her speed soar rapidly, however, this was also at a considerable cost to ignite her strength. After all, Su Luo's body right now, when all was said and done, was merely at the 8th rank. How could she endure such a speed? Su Luo felt her that entire head was dizzy, as if a raging inferno was ignited in her body. Even bursts of pain came from her feet. Persevere on, don't stop. Little Stone saw that Su Luo was about to stop and hurriedly shouted to her. Why can't I stop? Right now Su Luo was very tired, so hungry that she could swallow a whole cow, so thirsty that she could drink an entire spring of water. Little Stone looked at Su Luo, full of sympathy, and unhurriedly said, if you stop now, the efficiency of the speed medicine will also fade away. Afterwards, when you want to run fast again, then there won't be a chance. Chapter 1319, Frantic along the whole way 4. That was to say, if Su Luo stopped now, then the speed medicine's effect would disappear. Her speed would not be able to soar to 10 times her rate. Su Luo, depressed, grabbed her hair. How could it be so restrictive? Otherwise, you think that all drugs are omnipotent? If it really was not subjected to restriction, and is omnipotent, then everyone would have a handful of speed medicine. And then wouldn't this world be in a mess? Little Stone leisurely said. However, you can rest assured before you ate so many legendary medicines from Central Palace's treasure storage pavilion. Your body temporarily hasn't absorbed those legendary medicines, therefore, it all remained in your body. Now, it just so happens that you can burn it to support your spirit form. Su Luo suddenly felt speechless. How was it that she felt the Little Stone was this two-faced? It actually calculated this matter from all sides from the very beginning. Su Luo had just wanted to speak. then turned her head to discover a tornado-like power sweeping over. And immediately, her complexion changed. Quickly run. Little Stone loudly warned Su Luo. Su Luo didn't have time to talk to him. Immediately, wind came from the soles of her feet, her speed once again doubling. After refining the speed medicine, according to everyone's constitution, it was different. Therefore, the result would also be different. If it was an ordinary person, it could really raise a person's speed by tenfold and preserve it for 2 hours. But coincidentally, before Su Luo had looted Central Palace's treasure storage pavilion and swallowed a lot of legendary medicines, with these legendary medicines' support, Su Luo simply didn't feel tired. Once again above her foundation, she still upgraded her speed even more. Ancestor Mo already saw the little black dot up ahead. This breath from the little black dot was the one that made him vomit out blood. Halt! Ancestor Mo madly roared towards the little black dot up ahead. But that little black dot not only refused to acknowledge him, on the contrary, its speed soared even more. It rapidly went and disappeared from the earth. Ancestor Mo was immediately furious. But at the same time, he also sensed the strangeness. Clearly, the ant-like little thing, how did its speed become so fast in an instant? Under his full-strength pursuit and attack, he was actually only a little bit faster than her. This point puzzled Ancestor Mo. But puzzled belonged to being puzzled. He still bit fixedly to Su Luo's figure, not letting go. Ancestor Mo vowed, this time, after he captured this loathsome girl, he must suck her blood dry, not leaving a bit behind. Being played by Su Luo numerous times, she also escaped countless times. Ancestor Mo also was somewhat scared witless. As a result, he used all his might to run, one rabbit-like foot chasing powerfully after. Both people's speed soared to their peak. From the angle at midair, you could clearly see the two little black dots were gradually getting closer to each other. If no other factors were taken into consideration, just with regards to the current speed, sooner or later, the little black dot ahead would be caught. In fact, Su Luo's heart also had this worry. Moreover, it wasn't just this worry. What made Su Luo even more depressed was that after running for a long time, the spirit medicines in her body were almost all consumed. Little Stone's brows were also tightly knotted. After careful calculation, the spirit medicine in your body can only support you for 1 hour more. Su Luo's heart shivered, that was to say after 1 hour, when all the spirit medicine in her body was consumed. At that time, even if she didn't want to stop, she still had to stop? Now the old madman behind her was biting on so tightly. Not only couldn't she pull open a gap, when the time came that she was forced to stop, then wouldn't she be directly captured? Having thought of this, Su Luo's heart was somewhat anxious. After her blood experience being sucked away time and time again, there wasn't much remaining. If it was sucked again, she could only directly say bye-bye to this world. Chapter 1320, Frantic along the whole way, 5. What would be the best thing to do? Although Su Luo ran along the way with soaring speed, in her mind, she pondered nonstop for a way out. Suddenly, an unwavering determination flashed through Su Luo's eyes. If it was preordained that she couldn't escape old madman's palm, then she must not die in vain. She must have thousands of millions of people be buried with her. A cold light flashed in Su Luo's eyes. Before she heard First Elder and Emperor Ming discuss military intelligence, and Su Luo knew. It was in the southeast direction. On the border of northern Mo, was stationed an oppressive army. These troops were eyeing Eastern Ling, covetously trying to invade Eastern Ling. Afterwards, First Elder also dispatched a 9th-ranked, 2 8th-ranked and 5 7th-ranked experts. With the help of these 8 people, perhaps very quickly, Eastern Ling would fall into enemy hands. Thinking up to here, the corner of Su Luo's mouth hooked into a sneering grin. Since she knew of this matter, then she might as well act out a good little play for that First Elder and Emperor Ming to have a look. Let them see how Northern Mo's army was sent out in triumph and died first. The plan was set in Su Luo's heart, to draw that old madman behind her into Northern Mo's army. But there was another problem in this. Now Su Luo's speed medicine only had a little more time left over. What must she do to dodge old madman Mo's chase to kill? After all, From the beginning, she was running in the southwest direction. Now, she wanted to go in the southeast direction. It was not on the way. Just when Su Luo was at her wits' ends, the variant acacia tree took a step with 4 legs to rub against Su Luo. It saw that the little 9-tailed spirit fox and the little stone both got results, and it could only sit on the side to watch everyone try very hard. Its heart was very anxious. Variant acacia tree's golden vine with leaves rubbed against Su Luo and conducted a conversation with Su Luo. Bystanders didn't know what the variant acacia tree said, but Su Luo's eyes began to gradually get brighter. What you said is true? The corner of Su Luo's mouth hooked up slightly, her face full of an excited smile. Yes, yes. Variant acacia tree was also excited because it could help Su Luo. Good, then let's do it like that. Su Luo exchanged a smile with variant acacia tree. The little stone on the side saw this, and his eyes had an expression full of curiosity. What are you guys talking about? Because variant acacia tree was Su Luo's contracted plant pet, when it was communicating with Su Luo in her head, even the formidable little stone also wouldn't know about it. Su Luo proudly raised her chin. Very quickly, you will be able to see it. When Su Luo's speed medicine had reached the end of its effectiveness, one could only see Su Luo turn around. The variant acacia tree appeared where she was, and Su Luo was wrapped tightly up by this variant acacia tree. She was bundled up so tightly that not a trace of spirit aura leaked out. At this moment, Su Luo's figure was curled up. Then she adjusted her physiological functions to the lowest state. Su Luo had no choice. She could only use this kind of way to have a fight. Not long after, Old Madman passed this variant acacia tree like a tornado, then in a flying manner rushed forward. This time, because Old Madman's rabbit-like feet was rushing to catch up to Su Luo, so he didn't destroy everything on the side of the road. Otherwise, this variant acacia tree would instantly become dust by Old Madman's power. Seeing the Old Madman rush, flying forward with inertia, the corner of Su Luo's mouth hooked into a having prevailed smile. Hey, this way you can also escape a calamity? In Su Luo's mind, an amazed expression flashed through the little stone's eyes. Now his admiration for Su Luo had reached an extreme point. One very insignificant 8 rank, faced with being chased to kill by an expert at the peak of Saint rank. Although she staggered along the whole journey, surrounded by perils numerous times, hovering between life or death. However, what made it unbelievable was that she actually survived this whole journey. Moreover, she also very fiercely teased that expert at the peak of Saint rank once around. Chapter 1321. Frantic along the whole way 6. It seems you really are the daughter of the goddess of fortune. This luck? Little Stone didn't know whether to praise Su Luo's good luck, or that her strength was good. That first elder at the peak of commander rank from the northernmost royal family was frozen into an ice cube with one palm strike from that old madman. That second elder at the beginning of the commander rank was slapped into slags by one palm strike. But now this small 8th rank Su Luo was still healthy and active. My family's venerable mother was so devastatingly beautiful, with 10,000 kinds of enchanting grace. How could she be the goddess of fortune? Goddess of love seems more appropriate. Su Luo saw that the old madman didn't run back for a long time, and immediately relaxed a breath of air. She even had the mood to laugh and tease the little stone. Looks like the old madman really chased along the original route. Really, is the heavens also helping me? Su Luo laughed with hee-hee sounds and drank a mouthful of high-grade celestial spirit water to maintain her physical strength. Then, she turned to head in the southeast direction. No matter what, hidden in the army with millions of soldiers would absolutely be much safer compared to anywhere else. As a result, Su Luo headed towards the southeast. The pitiful Ancestor Mo still didn't know that Su Luo had hidden the variant acacia tree halfway along the journey. Because he couldn't catch up to Su Luo for a long time, he became angrier. And the result was that his speed soared to his limit. But even like this before, that unceasingly moving little black dot still disappeared without a trace. He searched everywhere and couldn't find it. Although Ancestor Mo was a madman, he wasn't a fool. He still could use his brain. He depressively stopped his footsteps, slapping his head and standing in place. He didn't ponder over the issue, rather, he directly mobilized all the spirit force in his body. He released his sharp perception and rapidly pressed it forward. In the wake of the spirit aura being released out more and more into the distance, Ancestor Mo's expression followed it, becoming uglier and uglier. Within 500 meters, not there. Within 5 kilometers, still not there. Within 50 kilometers, continued to not be there. That flea-like little black dot seemed to have disappeared from this world. Up ahead, he completely couldn't feel her aura. Ancestor Mo rubbed his starving flat stomach, and suddenly, he went insane from anger. Recalling that blood filled with a sweet fragrance, the saliva at the corner of Ancestor Mo's mouth, with dripping sounds, dropped down. Really want to drink, ah? But where was that little flea, ah? Ancestor Mo patted his head and simply sat cross-legged in place, his pair of eyes closed tightly. The spirit power that was locked in the southwest direction now radiated in all directions. Along with time passing bit by bit, suddenly, Ancestor Mo's tightly closed eyes abruptly opened. A cold light shot out from his eyes. At the same time, Ancestor Mo was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. When did that little flea head towards the southeast direction? Caused him to run for so long in vain, really was hateful to the extreme. Must eat her up. Ancestor Mo made a fist. Now, Ancestor Mo had no time to think some more. His figure leapt up like lightning towards the southeast direction, rapidly chasing after his food. At this moment, Su Luo's mental strength had been restored. She knew Ancestor Mo would definitely chase over, so she didn't hide nor conceal herself. So she openly and confidently used the teleport method, and quickly headed towards the army stationed in the southeast direction. However, Su Luo's heart was still somewhat proud. Even if it was first elder at the peak of commander rank, would he have the ability to run for 1 day and 1 night, and not be captured by the old madman at the peak of saint rank? This Su Luo could proudly say she could. Teleport, teleport, and teleport again. Unconsciously, another daytime passed. The border of northern Mo was so close as to be less than a meter away. Originally, the battlefield at night should be quiet, but at this moment, the place where northern Mo's army was stationed was very lively. Chapter 1322, Frantic. Along the whole way 7. General Zhao's whole body was covered in armor. On his head was a helmet that had been wiped until it shone. A stately face was serious and powerful, without having to be angry, giving off a domineering, formidable and powerful feeling. At this moment, he sat on the imperial Tudor-style chair in a tent. Beneath him neatly sat 8 deputy generals. Great Commander, today we won an overwhelming victory, beheading close to 50,000 enemy troops. Really is worthy of celebration, ah? A deputy general said, grinning from ear to ear. Those cowards from Eastern Ling are simply too weak. Each and every one of them is like a weakling. One sword falling would resolve one of them. Another deputy general said complacently. Great Commander Zhao's formidable face showed a trace of smiling expression, proudly nodding his head. This was all thanks to the 8 experts that arrived last night. If it was not for them charging around violently in the opposing army, thoroughly scattering the opposing army's order, we wouldn't have won so quickly. 50,000 ah, a full 50,000 bodies ah. We had fought with Eastern Ling for so long and never once beheaded this many of the enemy. We merely lost 1,000 people. That river of blood on the grassland, the flowing blood were all from Eastern Ling's soldiers ah. Ha ha ha. This time's huge victory, presumably, His Majesty and First Elder are sure to heavily reward us. At that time, the position of Great General that protects the nation is an object in Great Commander's pocket. Oh. Another Deputy General praised. Great Commander Zhao's face was brimming with a complacent smile. He clearly was enjoying these words of praise. With great difficulty, he resisted the arc from forming at the corner of his mouth, and gave a light cough. He stiffened his face to say a sentence indifferently. To speak of this matter is still premature. If we could really seize Eastern Ling, at that time, why stop at a great general that protected the country? Maybe the entire Eastern Ling would be under his administration. This local tyrant was an easier position to sit on than a great general that protected the country. Great Commander Zhao's heart was very pleased with himself. Compared to Northern Mo's jubilation, Eastern Ling's side was full of sorrow and bleakness. One battle, 50,000 soldiers died tragically. This was still the first time it happened in Eastern Ling's history. Mu Zifeng laid on the bed, complexion dismal as white paper. From the bloodstains at the corner of his mouth, you could tell, not long ago, he had just vomited out blood. Great General, it's very important to take care of your body. That's right, Great General. Victory or defeat is commonplace in military operations. Mu Zifeng dispiritedly waved his hand, weakly sighing. Northern Mo this time came with rushing momentum, also had a 9th-ranked expert participate in this battle. Eastern Ling is in danger, Great General. The two deputy generals' eyes were full of a bleak expression. Mu Zifeng dismally smiled, an unswerving determination flashing through his eyes. But a man must guard his home and defend the country. This work is heaven's law and unalterable. Even if we are no match for them, we will still fight to the death until the end. Must protect Eastern Ling's doorway well. But just as you, the Great General, have said, the opponent has a 9th-ranked expert engaged in this war. This match of battle hasn't even started and we have lost, Deputy General A anxiously said. That's right, Great General. What should we do now? The hearts of the soldiers under us in the army are in chaos, afraid accidents will happen, Deputy General B's expression was also not very good. Mu Zifeng looked at the black paint-like color of the night outside, and a helpless expression appeared in his eyes. Faced with a 9th-ranked expert, us common soldiers can only wait to be massacred. Could it be that we don't have our own 9th-ranked expert, Deputy General A indignantly asked. We have, our Eastern Ling also has them. It seemed as if Mu Zifeng thought of something, violently coughed several times, then slowly said, only those several people in order to pursue their way. They had already disappeared in time. Nobody knows in the end where they went to. Chapter 1323. Frantic along the whole way. 8. Just like Northern Mo had an elder council, Eastern Jin also had strong experts, but the experts of Eastern Jin did not invest their energy into trivial worldly matters. Then what should we do now? Deputy General A asked helplessly. We can only fight this bloody battle to the end. Mu Zifeng wiped away the blood that spilled out at the corner of his mouth, a not afraid of dying aggressiveness appearing on his face. This is just throwing your life away, Deputy General A was extremely unhappy. One fist smashing down from a 9th-ranked expert, and an area of soldiers who were trained for so long would just collapse. Their bodies would just disintegrate into pulp. How were they supposed to fight? There was simply no way to fight, Deputy General B suddenly thought of something, his eyes shining. It will take time for the elder from the Emperor to come over, but Jade Lake Palace is very close to here. Should we ask for help from Jade Lake Palace? Deputy General A's eyes lit up as well. He slapped his thighs and was immediately excited. That's right. Wasn't it said that Fairy from Jade Lake Palace and His Highness Prince Jean have deep affection for each other, just short of being married, right? Let's go to Jade Lake Palace to ask for help. Mu Zifeng heard this, and a bitter smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Others may not know, but how could he, as Nangong Liuyun's maternal uncle, not know the truth? Difficult. Nangong Liuyun didn't have any romantic feelings for that Jade Lake's fairy, especially afterwards, when he heard Nangong liked the girl birthed by a concubine from Su Xian's manor. Because of this, he even offended the Jade Lake Palace. Not proper. Mu Zifeng waved his hand. Right now, if Jade Lake Palace doesn't hit a person when he's down is already pretty good. How could they even undertake the task to help? Mu Zifeng did not guess wrong. At this time, Li Yaoyao had already been secretly transported to Jade Lake Palace. Although she remained unconscious, but Mo family's third young master that escorted her back to Jade Lake Palace said something profoundly mysterious to Jade Lake Palace. These words, when listened to, hardly said anything, but carefully analyzed it, and the meaning within was very thought-provoking. Therefore, the whole Jade Lake Palace hated Nangong Liuyun and Su Luo to the bone. How could they dispatch experts to come over and help? Let alone to say, most of the elite core of the Jade Lake Palace, for the most part, had died in Su Luo's hand. For example, In the beginning, it was Li Outyan, having his cultivation destroyed Li Outxiong, dead or alive unknown Li Yaoxiang. A pity, Jade Lake's Li family's direct line of descendants weren't that many to begin with, but just Su Luo alone destroyed 3 of them. If Li Yaoyao was added, it would be a full 4 people. Deputy General A and Deputy General B didn't know the grace and resentment between Jade Lake's Li family and Nangong Luyan. Seeing the great general veto this proposal, they both became a bit anxious. Mu Zifeng had no other way, so he could only pick a few things about Nangong Liuyun's and Jade Lake's Li family's grace and grudges that he could tell and told them. It's all because of that 4th Miss Su. Deputy General A slammed his palm on the table and stood up in anger. Don't know if that 4th Miss Su has what abilities to actually make His Highness Prince Jean give up Jade Lake's fairy, who is above the common mortals for her. Deputy General B depressedly humphed twice heavily. Otherwise we could ask for help from Jade Lake Palace now. 50,000 soldiers just to be wiped out like this. Deputy General A unwillingly howled in grief. A stern light flashed through Mu Zifeng's eyes. Already urgently sent for help from the Emperor 1,500 kilometers away, very quickly, reinforcements will arrive. What are you guys so worried about? Let alone to say, even without that 4th Miss Su, Luyan also wouldn't have married Jade Lake's Li family. Speaking of this, Mu Zifeng was very curious about this girl named Su Luo. He knew his sister's son's character, able to make his heart think constantly about a person, presumably. She was even more outstanding than that Jade Lake's Li family's fairy. Chapter 1324. Frantic along the whole way 9. Be that as it may, Deputy General A and B's hearts were still sulking, anxious to the extreme. Enough, you two go calm the soldiers down properly, to avoid the swaying of their morale, and to prevent mutiny taking place. Mu Zifeng dispatched these 2 capable subordinates out. Before he firmly resisted the attacks from that 9th-ranked expert, and his body had received serious internal injuries. After the 2 capable deputy generals left, Mu Zifeng forcefully propped up body couldn't hold up any longer, and mouthful after mouthful of blood sprayed out from his mouth, so intense as if he could vomit out all his disintegrated internal organs. It was a long while before Mu Zifeng, panting coarsely, could lie on the bed again. 2 armies faced off, one side full of surging flame, the other side full of anxiety and grief. However, Su Luo's arrival, could she change this situation? Su Luo still didn't know that the expert's northernmost first elder sent had arrived so quickly to the battlefield. Moreover, they immediately participated in the battle soon after arriving, helping Northern Mo obtain an unprecedented victory. Now it was a moonless night with high winds. The bright moonlight was obstructed by thick clouds, only faint rays of light penetrated through it. On such a night, visibility was very low. But for Su Luo, there wasn't any difference from normal. Looking at the rows of tents standing tall up ahead, the corner of Su Luo's lips curled into a strange, cold sneer. Northern Mo's million-strong army was stationed within a 1-kilometer range. Because they had been victorious in battle, right now, they were holding joyful meetings before bonfires. Outside a tent was guarded by a squadron of soldiers. These soldiers within the Northern Mo's army were considered a very strong fighting force, because the weakest among them was at the 4th rank. But for Su Luo, they were merely ants that could be exterminated just by jabbing a finger. This time, Su Luo had some appreciation in her heart. When she went to Amethyst-Thorned Island to fish, it was when she was merely at the 3rd or 4th rank, didn't expect that after merely a blink of an eye's effort, she could look back at these 4th-ranked soldiers as ants. No wonder so many people would want to climb nonstop to the peak on the road to becoming an expert, because the greater the strength, the higher one stood. Su Luo, while thinking this, her figure shot into the tents like a demon. Because she was using teleport, in just a blink of an eye's effort, Su Luo had arrived inside the tent. When Su Luo appeared, her luck really wasn't particularly good. Because her figure had just appeared when she discovered she was directly facing a soldier, who was roasting a whole goat on the fire. This soldier saw Su Luo appear from empty air, and was completely scared stupid. He was just about to loudly scream ghost, But before he could, Su Luo's dagger slid across his neck, and the poor soldier was immediately silenced forever. Standing in the middle of a path with people coming and going, the chances of being discovered was very high. Su Luo thought about it, and a crafty light shone in her eyes. Since she had to do something big in the middle of Northern Mo's army, then it was important to prepare everything beforehand. As it was so easy to meet this soldier, then she should first borrow his clothes. Su Luo sized up this soldier, and discovered he wasn't really big and tall, therefore, she was very satisfied with the outfit. Dragging this soldier's corpse into the tent nearby, Su Luo, in passing, hit him under the bed. Then, she clapped her hands and strutted out of the tent. At this moment, Su Luo's body was covered in martial attire, the helmet on her head pressed down pretty low. And also, it was in this pitch-black night. As a result, Su Luo's chances of being exposed was very low. Su Luo had just infiltrated into the troops. On the other side, Ancestor Mo's figure abruptly appeared in mid-air. Chapter 1325. Frantic along the whole way. 10. Ancestor Mo followed tightly after Su Luo's aura. Now, he directly entered Northern Mo's camp. At this time, Ancestor Mo stood in mid-air, looking at the people going back and forth below. He immediately got angry, because he discovered that these people were all dressed the same. Like this, he simply couldn't find his delicious food. Damn it! Ancestor Mo was toyed by Su Luo all along the way, and his anger had already surged to the brink. Now seeing this hateful camp, his anger suddenly rushed out frantically like lava. Momentarily, a strong pressure enveloped the whole camp. Below, the originally happy Northern Mo soldiers sitting around bonfires barbecuing, immediately, each and every one of them felt as if being hit by death. Their hearts were enveloped by the shadow of death. Go die. Ancestor Mo's palm gathered an endless amount of cold air that rushed out wildly like waves. A countless number of hailstones burst down from overhead. Oh heavens! What's going on in the end? How can there be hail now in the night? Who's that dirty old man in midair? Those hailstones were thrown down by him, right? Quickly run, quickly run, my head. Help in a moment. The originally joyful camp became a ghostly prison. Countless voices crying for help and shouting noises resounding. It's important to know, this was not a group of 100, also not tens of thousands of people, rather a full million-strong army. A whole million people fleeing in all directions. What kind of consequences would this create? Being trampled on. Without a doubt, being trampled. The hailstone smashing vertically from midair contains strong murderous aura. If struck by it, these soldiers would be badly smashed. Their entire person would disintegrate into slags. Therefore, countless wanted to flee, countless wanted to run. However, this densely packed area of the entire camp was enveloped. Where could they run to? Now the great Commander Zhao, who was so complacent just now, looked at the scene before his eyes and immediately became dumbfounded. This in the end, what is happening? Great Commander Zhao nearly spit out blood. This was a whole million people. In order to attack Eastern Ling, His Majesty had assembled all the elite troops and given it to him. But Great Commander Zhao looked at the countless number of corpses and blood in front of his eyes, and his entire face turned deathly pale. His figure could barely stand. Oh heavens, that is, when he clearly saw who that man in midair randomly throwing down hailstones was, Great Commander Zhao's figure swayed, a mouthful of blood spraying out. Wasn't Central Palace's Mo family in alliance with Northern Mo's royal family? How could he take the lead to attack Northern Mo? Could it be that Mo family and Easterling's Nangong royal family had joined hands? Also, for this mundane world's war, they actually sent the elder ancestor of Mo family. Great Commander Zhao was close to going insane. His pair of eyes turned red and was full of wisps of blood. His face became stiff because of being excessively frightened, muscles trembling in bursts. Mo, Ancestor Mo, I beg you to quickly stop, Great Commander Zhao yelled in panic. Despite being the commander-in-chief of a million-soldier army, but in front of such a formidable, unique and strong expert, his tone couldn't help but carry a trace of trembling, revealing the panic deep in his heart. Great Commander Zhao's tone carried a trace of spirit energy. In the noisy field, it was rather clear. Ancestor Mo, was just releasing his spirit power to look for Su Luo. Hearing this voice, he turned his head and looked over in disdain. Seeing Ancestor Mo looking over, Great Commander Zhao immediately was exalted. He was so pleasantly surprised that he almost cried. "What does your venerable person want? You only need to instruct, please, I beg you, stop the hailstorm." Hailstorm was originally heaven's privilege, but how could Ancestor Mo not be in control of a portion of the world? Chapter 1326. Final Decisive Battle. 1. Ancestor Mo swept a disdainful glance at Great Commander Zhao, and in passing, sent an explosive attack towards him. The pitiful Great Commander Zhao, no matter what, he was still a great general that controlled an army of millions of soldiers, but under Ancestor Mo's slight sweep of his sleeves, his entire person seemed to have fallen into an icehouse. Snow-white frost covered his whole body. Great Commander Zhao still maintained that pleading posture, then he was turned into an ice sculpture. Great Commander Zhao's eyes were opened wide, looking at Ancestor Mo with disbelief. Just like this, he was freezed over? The troop of bodyguards at Great Commander Zhao's side was all dumbfounded, staring foolishly. After they returned to their senses, they all started shouting from panic. "Great Commander! What's wrong with you? Great Commander! Quickly come out!" A group of 20 bodyguards enfolded Great Commander Zhao on all sides. They carried long broadswords and chopped at that thick layer of ice. However, what made them give up all hope was that even if they used all their strength to chop down, that layer of ice didn't have a trace of cracking. Their little bit of attack power was completely useless. Before these bodyguards could figure out what to do next, another violent hailstorm fell from the sky, speed fast as artillery shells, crowding together like torrents of rain. These bodyguards were unable to tend to themselves. One by one, they got hit on the head and were crushed on the spot. The frozen-over Great Commander Zhao could only helplessly watch as the bodyguards he was so proud of once all died tragically. The muscles on his face violently trembled because of anger. "Ancestor Mo, you madman! Madman!" Great Commander Zhao wanted to scream loudly, but he was frozen over, so his voice couldn't pass out of the ice. The only thing he could do was watch helplessly as his million-soldier-strong army, in an instant, fell down like mustard grass, dead without an intact corpse. Eastern Ling Army. Mu Zifeng, with great difficulty, nursed his injuries a bit better. He had just opened his rested eyes, when excited shouts came from outside. He stood up and took large strides to walk over. At this time, Deputy General A and Deputy General B excitedly ran over, their faces bright red with excitement. "Great General! Great Joya! Great Joya!" Deputy General A was so excited, he could barely speak. In the end, what happened? Mu Zifeng's face was cold, as he strictly looked at the two excited, capable subordinates. "Great General, you quickly look that way." Deputy General B excitedly dragged Mu Zifeng over. In 2 to 3 movement, he dragged him over to a small hilltop, pointing at Northern Mo's army camp on the opposite side. His voice was shaking with excitement. Mu Zifeng followed his line of sight to look that way. This glance, his face turned sluggish. In the end, what happened? Could it be that the heavens showed its might to come specifically to punish Northern Mo's army? One could only see in the sky above Northern Mo's 10 kilometers-sized camp. Never-ending hailstones smashed down in succession. A countless number of soldiers were smashed into meat patty. Momentarily the whole scene was in chaos, extremely frenetic. This is... Mu Zifeng's pair of eyes was at a loss, speechless to the extreme. This is retribution, Even the heavens couldn't stand Northern Mo's conducts and deeds, so dropped from the heavens to punish them. Deputy General A excitedly shook his fist, almost couldn't control himself. How was this heaven's punishment? Aren't you overthinking it? Deputy General B pointed at that figure emitting rays of light suspended in midair and excitedly said, "You guys look, the hailstones were all made by that strong expert." Mu Zifeng nodded his head to say, "Don't know who this strong expert is. Could it be he is our Eastern Ling's people?" Mu Zifeng couldn't be blamed for thinking this way, because Eastern Ling had sunk into such a predicament, on the verge of being completely wiped out, when so coincidentally, this deity appeared, with the strength of one person, destroying a whole army of million soldiers. A person with such strength, it was hard to find a few in the entire world. Chapter 1327. Final Decisive Battle 2. Maybe he had enmity with Northern Mo's royal family. Deputy General A said with a schadenfreude smile. Mu Zifeng thought deeply and felt it was correct. Maybe that's indeed so. Apart from this, there was simply no other way to explain why this expert would launch such a devastating attack against Northern Mo. Great General. This deputy wants to lead soldiers to encircle the fleeing Northern Mo's soldiers. Deputy General A could hardly conceal his excitement, and loudly asked for orders. This deputy also asks to lead soldiers to encircle the fleeing Northern Mo's soldiers. There's no need for that many people, 10,000 soldiers would do. Deputy General A also asked loudly for orders. Before, Eastern Ling was suppressed so miserably, now, it was such a good chance to beat a drowning dog. How could they let it slip by? However, Mu Zifeng's face was cold and strict to the extreme, and after a long time, only then did he shake his head slowly. Must not. Why? Deputy General A and B both asked anxiously. Mu Zifeng cool-headedly analyzed. If that expert deliberately looked for Northern Mo's bad luck, and you guys enter the battlefield areas, there's no guarantee you won't provoke him. At that time, you guys will implicate Eastern Ling's army. This kind of consequences, can you guys shoulder it? Based on that expert's cultivation, wiping out Eastern Ling's army would be child's play to him. With a wave of his sleeve, Eastern Ling's army would be played to death. Seeing that Deputy General A and B wanted to say something but hesitated, Mu Zifeng again said. Let alone to say the current battle situation. If you got sucked into this pit, it will be like being wiped out like dumplings placed in a frying pan. Do you guys have the strength to run out? Do you guys feel that Eastern Ling's army is braver and more valiant than Northern Mo's army? So, why would you guys bother to go meaninglessly sacrifice your lives? Seeing his two capable trusted aides hang their heads down in guilt, Mu Zifeng patted their shoulders. Transmit my orders down. Eastern Ling's whole army is to withdraw 50 kilometers away, then sit and watch a great play. Yes. The two deputy generals hurriedly received the order and left. Mu Zifeng still stood in his original place, with both arms linked behind his back, eyes half-narrowed and unblinking, as he watched that dazzling figure in the distance suspended in mid-air. He stroked his chin, somewhat vexed as he furrowed his eyebrows. That person's figure, why did it look a bit familiar? Northern Mo's army camp. Su Luo was running back and forth in the crowd. Because there was a million soldiers to conceal herself behind, therefore, Ancestor Mo simply couldn't lock onto her aura. So Ancestor Mo issued destructive attacks on this camp out of fury, creating a pile of corpses on the ground and a river of blood. However, in the wake of the corpses falling down nonstop next to her, the smell of death started to fill the air, so the scent of an alive person would be easy to identify. This was also the reason behind Ancestor Mo's crazed attack at the crowds. Very quickly, Ancestor Mo locked on to the target he was looking for. However, this time, Ancestor Mo didn't rush to chase and attack Su Luo. Instead, he took out a transparent crystal ball out from his chest pocket. Now the thick layer of clouds scattered, the bright and clear moonlight shining on the ground. The naked eye could clearly see the transparent crystal ball sitting in the center of Ancestor Mo's palm. This crystal ball emitted soul-absorbing rays of light. Suddenly, Su Luo had a very bad premonition. She felt that ever since Ancestor Mo took out this crystal ball, her soul actually received intense undulations, as if it wanted to fly out of her body and charge into that dazzling brilliant crystal ball. In the end, what was that crystal ball? How could it have such a strong attractive force over her soul? Su Luo only felt her head become dizzy, as if her body was being controlled, like a puppet, moving forward step by step. At this time, the countless number of bodies piled up on the ground like a mountain, the surface of these bodies filling the air with a faint black smoke. These black smoke curled upwards into the sky, and assembled towards that crystal ball. Chapter 1328. Final Decisive Battle 3. The black smoke was thin as silk, but there was a lot of it. Before long, a large part of the brilliant transparent crystal ball was covered in a bluish-black color. The transparent crystal ball turned into a black crystal ball. Su Luo was like an idiot, mechanically striding forward, step by step, moving closer and closer to Ancestor Mo's place. Ancestor Mo didn't seem to have noticed Su Luo's figure. Right now, his entire attention was attracted to that black ball of souls, as if it was a better delicacy than Su Luo's blood. Time passed by in minutes and seconds. Finally, Ancestor Mo had all the souls from the million soldiers' corpses absorbed into the black crystal ball. This black-colored crystal ball gave off the feeling of shaking fear from absorbing people's souls, ghastly and shady, making people's backs feel cold. Ha 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 ha. After it was finished absorbing, Ancestor Mo looked at the black threads in the crystal ball, and a fanatical laughter exploded from his mouth. He unrestrainedly howled with a laughter that shook the world, causing an effect that nearly collapsed the sky and made the earth sink. Amidst the sounds of his crazed laughter, the ground caved in continuously. Those countless number of corpses immediately sank down, and were buried by the silt. At this time, that frozen-over great Commander Zhao's entire person was about to go insane. He was standing there like a sculpture. Not only was he forced to watch his whole million-soldier army be killed, he still had to watch their souls being sucked away. Now he also had to watch them get buried by the soil. However, this kind of outcome made him want to throw up blood in rage, but he was powerless to change it. Even he himself was overturned in place, then fell down into the soil, and was wordlessly buried into the pitch-black soil. Everything went black from there on. While alive, he starved to death. In the midst of Ancestor Mo's crazed laughter, Su Luo suddenly sobered up. She only felt her mind was violently being emptied, and when she opened her eyes again, Ancestor Mo already stood indifferently in front of her with the black crystal ball in his hands. My delicious food. Ancestor Mo stuffed the black crystal ball into his chest pocket, then, with flying speed, pounced toward Su Luo. At this moment, Su Luo felt like she was about to fall apart. After fleeing all the way over here, surrounded by numerous perils, now was she really unable to escape this? However, survival instinct made Su Luo turn around and run. But Su Luo wasn't able to run 2 steps before she was lifted up by her nape with her foot in mid-air. Ancestor Mo's sinister teeth leaned close to Su Luo and fiercely bit towards her neck. This time, Ancestor Mo didn't have any intention of letting Su Luo survive, so these teeth bit down urgently and fiercely, itching to break up Su Luo's whole body into pieces to consume completely. If Su Luo was bitten, then she would certainly die. There was no hope for her to survive. Just at this critical moment, the little divine dragon struck his head out of Su Luo's space to explore. His sharp teeth moved up and ruthlessly bit down on Ancestor Mo's tongue. Ancestor Mo momentarily didn't detect him, so his tongue was bitten spot on by the little divine dragon. No matter how strong Ancestor Mo was, but how would he have been able to armor up his tongue? So Ancestor Mo's tongue started to bleed wildly after being bitten by the little divine dragon. Ancestor Mo went mad from anger, and with a heavy fling, the little divine dragon was immediately hit flying, and his tiny little body rolled on the ground. Then he quietly fainted. That tiny round figure laid on the ground not moving, don't know if it was dead or alive. He. Ancestor Mo laughed madly in passing, grabbed Su Luo by her neck. Hiccup. Su Luo suddenly felt a burst of being suffocated. She only felt her breathing being cut off, her mind going blank. Hallucinations started to appear before her eyes. Chapter 1329. Final decisive battle 4. Was she about to die? Su Luo was unwilling. She still had so many things she hadn't accomplished. She still hadn't seen her mother, and also didn't know who was her bastard of a father. The most important thing was she promised to be with Nangong Luyan her entire life. She couldn't break this promise. The tears in Su Luo's eyes silently fell down. Her pair of white as jade arms noiselessly hung down. Su Luo's mind went black. In the darkness, she seemed to see the fiend-like Grim Reaper laugh at her strangely. Just when Su Luo was about to breath her last, a black figure slowly appeared. One could only see him dressed in a black embroidered robe, standing in mid-air. On his matchless handsome face, was an incomparably calm and composed expression. One only saw his sleeve dance lightly, floating elegantly like a god's, and his whole body emitting a soaring aggressiveness that could destroy the sky and wipe out the earth. If Su Luo was awake, she would definitely cry out in surprise. Nangong Luyan. This man looked like Nangong Luyan, and also didn't seem like him. He looked at Ancestor Mo indifferently, and walked forward step by step, whole body emitting an intense fighting intent. As if having felt the opponent's enmity, Ancestor Mo tossed the close-to-death Su Luo to the side. The spirit energy around his body mobilized in a split second, in an instant, entering a battle-ready state. In the state of a madman, he was even more sensitive to murderous aura than before. The two people stood in midair. Below was soil stained in rivers of blood. There was no birds chirping or beasts hissing in the surroundings, let alone the clamor of human voices. There was only a strange silence. You must die. Nangong Liuyun's eyes swept over the nearly dead Su Luo's body, a cold light spewing out from his eyes, like a great monarch looking down on all the kings in the world. His eyes were strict and murderous. Ancestor Mo's eyes half-narrowed dangerously. He could feel the young man standing before him. Compared to a few days ago, his cultivation was stronger by a lot, even causing him to feel jumpy. Ancestor Mo could not understand why, in a short few days' time, his opponent's cultivation would increase this much so quickly. A madman's brain was always hard to use. He didn't bother thinking and directly smashed a fist towards Nangong Luyan. Nangong Liuyun's both hands formed seals. Immediately, a murderous cold aura surrounded his body. In the blink of an eye, he had condensed out a huge black hole. His cold and detached voice sounded. The first move, Black Vortex. This black hole was like a giant vortex. Around it formed a powerful attractive force, directly sucking in Ancestor Mo's palm strike. Ancestor Mo's expression changed slightly. Such a terrible move. This move not only sucked in Ancestor Mo's palm strike, moreover, it made Ancestor Mo unable to resist the force, staggering a step forward. If it wasn't for Ancestor Mo's strength being robust enough, afraid his entire person would have been sucked in. Sure enough, it is terrible. Ancestor Mo praised a sentence, a steaming fighting intent immediately flashing through his eyes. Ever since Ancestor Mo went mad, he was no different than an imbecile with martial arts. Now his eyes were like lightning, black hair in disarray, forceful palm strength suddenly slapping towards Nangong Luyan. This palm strike was 30% stronger than the one before. This instant, the wind from the strike seemed to penetrate the vastness of air, going through the strange black hole, directly charging towards the front of Nangong Luyan. Nangong Luyan didn't dodge, his whole body seething with a powerful aura, like an eternal barrier. Bang! The wind from the strike hit this barrier, and it was forcibly obstructed. Nangong Liuyun's hands formed seals, complicated hand seals striking out one after another, very quickly attacking towards Ancestor Mo. Originally, based on Nangong Liuyun's strength, he could only launch one ancient seal at a time. But now, these ancient seals seemed as if they didn't require energy, rushing madly towards Ancestor Mo with lightning speed, as if enveloping him in that void space. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.